the worlds of the heavens starting with Game of Thrones. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 251, Gathering in Shaolin. Buddhist lions roar. Zhu and Mingzi shouted in shock and anger. Xia Changqing and others were filled with joy. Although the roar also hurt them, everyone knew that the people from Shaolin Temple had arrived, and their reinforcement had arrived. In the distance, a group of monks were rushing over quickly, and they would arrive here in a short time. Zhu and Mingzi looked at the monks with an ugly expression, and said, "Bull donkeys are abominable, ruining my good things. Retreat." Zhu and Mingzi also made a prompt decision and immediately abandoned Xia Changqing and others. With the monks from Shaolin Temple present, he would not be able to get any good results. The Xianlang believers who had just recovered from the Buddhist lion's roar did not dare to stay any longer after hearing this, and they all rode their horses and quickly fled the scene with Zhu and Mingzi. Looking at the Xianlang people going away, Gu Yuxuan and others finally breathed a sigh of relief. Dongfang Weiming, who had the weakest martial arts, said nothing and fell to the ground. He had reached his limit, and when he breathed a sigh of relief, he naturally could not hold on any longer. Guan Wei also sat down on the ground, grimacing and crying out in pain. Gu Yuxuan was also pale. He was hit by Zhu and Mingzi's palm, and the blood he spat out of his mouth was still black. Looking at Xia Changqing again, the horrible wound on his right arm was still there. Except for Shen Xiangyan, who was firmly protected, the other 4 people were all injured. Xia Changqing glanced at Li Xiangxiang, who was still restrained by Shen Xiangyan. It was a good thing for this woman from the Xianlang sect. At this time, the monks who came from Shaolin Temple also came close. The leading master took a look at the miserable state of Xia Changqing and others. His face changed, and he directly ordered the monks, "Quick, save people first." Immediately, a young monk came forward and handed over the elixir. As the only disciple of Xiaoyao Valley who could still stand, Xia Changqing had to stand up. "Thank you all for your help, Master. I'm Xia Changqing from Xiaoyao Valley, and these are my fellow apprentices. Amitabha." The leading monk chanted a Buddhist name. "So you are a disciple of Xiaoyao Valley. I'm Wuhu from Shaolin Temple." The Xianlang sect is so bold that they dared to ambush the young heroes from various sects who came to participate in the Youth Hero Conference. It is our fault that Shaolin Temple did not find out in the first time. Wuhu took all the responsibility on their Shaolin Temple, which made Xia Changqing feel a little good about them. "Meet Master Wuhu." Xia Changqing clasped his fists and saluted. "The young donor is too seriously injured, so don't worry about these red tape. Everyone, follow me to Shaolin to recuperate. My abbot of the temple has learned about the conspiracy of the Xianlang sect and is vigorously clearing out the Xianlang sect people around." "Thank you very much, Master," Xia Changqing said readily. With the current situation of Gu Yuxuan and others, they really need to find a place to recuperate. With the help of the monks from Shaolin Temple, Xia Changqing and others were soon arranged to stay in the courtyard at the foot of Songshan Mountain. The people from Shaolin Temple were also responsible, and specially sent people, to deliver elixirs for recuperation. On the way to the Shaolin courtyard, Xia Changqing handed over Li Xiangxiang the burden. Gu Yuxuan and others settled down in the Shaolin courtyard with peace of mind. During this period, Xia Changqing discovered, as expected, that disciples from other sects had been sent here before them. Those who could come here could be considered lucky. Those who were unfortunate were either captured by the Xianlang sect or died on the spot. Xia Changqing shook his head helplessly, not knowing whether the leader of the Xianlang sect was lazy or crazy. Wasn't he afraid that the Central Plains martial arts would unite to deal with his Xianlang sect? In fact, it was not beyond Xia Changqing's expectation that the abbot of Shaolin Temple, Master Wu Yin, had sent letters to the various sects, informing the heads of the various sects that he planned to invite the heads of the various sects to Shaolin to discuss how to deal with the Xianlang sect through the event of the Youth Hero Conference. If nothing unexpected happened, the Youth Hero Conference would definitely be postponed. After all, no head would remain indifferent after learning that his disciples were killed or arrested. Xia Changqing also wrote a letter to Wuxiazi for this purpose. Unlike the letter written by Shaolin Temple, Xia Changqing described in detail the process of their trip and the role played by Zuan Mengzi in it. The letter informed Wuxiazi of the situation of him, Gu Yuxuan and others, and told him not to worry too much. However, based on Xia Changqing's understanding of Wuxiazi, he might not be worried at all. After sending the letter, the only thing left was to wait. During this period, the injuries of Gu Yuxuan, Guan Wei and others gradually recovered. With their introduction, Xia Changqing got to know many young heroes from other sects. Xia Changqing was not very enthusiastic about making friends with other young people, as he was not a real man of the world. Half a month later, letters from various sects were delivered to Shaolin Temple one after another. Xia Changqing also received a private letter from Wuxiazi. Wuxiazi was really a very Buddhist person. In the letter, he said that all matters would be handed over to Xia Changqing and Gu Yuxuan for discussion and decision. After reading the letter, Xia Changqing and Gu Yuxuan looked at each other. Their master, on the other hand, trusted them very much. So when other sects had at least sent their deputy heads, the two young men who could make the decision in Xiaoyao sect became Xia Changqing and Gu Yuxuan. Among the old men over 50 years old, there were only two young men, Xia Changqing and Gu Yuxuan. Masters. Wu Yan had just finished speaking when he saw Gu Yuxuan and Xia Changqing standing in the hall and talking to each other. He paused, not knowing what to say. It was because these two young men were too eye-catching. Today, you all gathered in Shaolin because of the Xianlang sect's rampage against disciples of various sects a few days ago. Those who came here were all powerful people from various sects, so the hall naturally couldn't be as noisy as a vegetable market. Everyone nodded reservedly at Wu Yan's words. Master Wu Yan is right. The Xianlang sect is really abominable. I don't think they take our Central Plains martial arts world seriously at all. In the silence, such a loud voice suddenly came, which naturally attracted everyone's attention. Xia Changqing didn't expect that Gu Yuxuan would say this, after he just slightly instigated him. Facing the gazes of the heads, Gu Yuxuan was not afraid. Seniors, am I wrong? Yes, nephew Gu is right. The Xianlang sect is really too rampant this time. It's time to teach them a lesson. That's right. Shaolin Temple is the leader of the Central Plains martial arts sects. I wonder what the rules are for Master Wu Yan. Chapter 252 Meeting Keeley again. The Shaolin gathering did not change because of the sudden rise of two young men, Xia Changqing and Gu Yuxuan. After a brief discussion, the leaders of the major sects in the Central Plains Wulin decided to form a demon-killing alliance, with the initiator Master Wu Yan as the leader, to jointly deal with the Xianlang sect. Xiaoyao sect naturally became a member of the alliance, but the disciples of Xiaoyao sect were so rare that they could not make any waves at all. The alliance valued Wuxiazi, the fourth in the world. When the Heavenly King was trapped in Shaolin Temple and the Sword Saint disappeared in seclusion, the person who could deal with the Dragon King was Wuxiazi, the leader of the Xiaoyao sect. However, Xia Changqing doubted that with Wuxiazi's character, could these people in the alliance really invite him to come out? Of course, what he had to consider at the moment was not this matter. After such a long delay, the Youth Hero Conference was finally going to be held. The Beggars sect, Wudang sect, King Cheng sect, Judeo sect, Xianjian sect, Sichuantang sect. All the major sects came one after another. Looking around, they were all young people. Of course, Xia Changqing thought that he was also a young man, and there was nothing wrong with mixing among these people. This is my first time to participate in such a lively conference. This Youth Hero Conference is the time for me to become famous. Xia Changqing and the other five came together, waiting for the Youth Hero Conference to begin. Guan Wei said with a face full of high spirits. Haha, brother Guan, it's been a long time since we last met. You are still so confident. Suddenly, a voice sounded from behind Guan Wei. Judging from the meaning of the words, it seemed that he did not have a good relationship with Guan Wei. Several people turned their heads and looked at the person who spoke. Guan Wei's face changed slightly, and a hint of disgust unconsciously appeared in his eyes. Who was it? It turned out to be Brother Jiang. How come you are also qualified to attend the Young Heroes Conference? Facing Guan Wei's sarcasm, Jiang Yu's smile remained unchanged, but his words were full of gunpowder. Even brother Guan can come to the Young Heroes Conference. How can I not come? The implicit meaning in Jiang Yu's words was very clear. This implicit belittlement of Guan Wei made everyone in Xiaoyao Valley look unhappy. There is no point in talking more. We have things to do, so I won't nag you. Jiang Yu, let's compete at the Young Heroes Conference. That's exactly what I want. Jiang Yu said, then I won't bother you. See you on the ring. Looking at Jiang Yu's receding figure, Guan Wei's face slowly recovered. Brother, who is he? He is too arrogant. Dan Fang Weiming asked, and his face was also full of anger at this time. Guan Wei patted Dan Fang Weiming on the shoulder and said, brother, don't bother with him. That man is called Jiang Yu, the son of Hello Hero Xia Changqing. His father won the championship at the Youth Hero Conference 20 years ago, so he also wants to win the championship, but I will never let him succeed. Guan Wei clenched his fists and gritted his teeth. Hello Hero Xia Changqing? Dan Fang Weiming exclaimed immediately. Xia Changqing is very famous in the Hello area. Young people like Dan Fang Weiming admire such young people. Brother, do you have a grudge against Xia Changqing? Why do I think you two don't get along? Dan Fang Weiming asked quickly. To be honest, after hearing that Jiang Yu was the son of Hello Hero Xia Changqing, he had already developed the intention to make friends with him. But if Guan Wei and Jiang Yu have a grudge, then he will have to think about it again. Have a grudge? No, we don't have any hatred, we just don't like each other. Dan Fang Weiming was not satisfied with Guan Wei's explanation. He wanted to ask more questions, but was suddenly interrupted by a voice. Brother Xia, is that you? Brother Xia? This was a woman's voice, and the source of the voice was behind the few people. Xia Changqing, who was originally listening to the love-hate relationship between Guan Wei and Jiang Yu, suddenly froze, and the words Dan Fang Weiming wanted to ask were also held back in his stomach. Several people turned their heads again and looked at the newcomer. A pretty young girl was standing behind them. The girl opened her two big black eyes and looked at Xia Changqing without blinking, her eyes full of surprise. Xia Changqing pulled the corner of his mouth, smiled bitterly silently, and greeted, Miss Qi, long time no see, you are also here to participate in the Youth Hero Conference? After seeing that it was really Xia Changqing, Qi Li's eyes were filled with tears, and she asked puzzledly, Brother Xia, where have you been? Do you know, I have been looking for you for a long time. Why did you leave without saying goodbye? This questioning immediately made the atmosphere on the scene a little awkward. Dan Fang Weiming looked at Guan Wei as if he had lost his parents and couldn't understand why these young and beautiful girls could be related to his senior brother. Guan Wei didn't have any other ideas because he had known Qi Li for a long time, but he also looked like he was watching a good show. Being able to see Xia Changqing's joke was more important to Guan Wei than getting a good ranking in the Youth Hero Conference. Brother Xia, who is she? Won't you introduce her to us? Before Xia Changqing could answer Qi Li's words, Shen Xiangan suddenly came to Xia Changqing's side, as if her body was about to stick to him. Xia Changqing looked at Shen Xiangan helplessly, wanting to blame her for coming out to make trouble, but he couldn't say such words. He really had no experience to deal with such a situation. If he had to choose, he would rather fight Zhu and Mingzi for 300 rounds. Xia Changqing didn't know how to deal with the two women. He couldn't hit them, nor could he scold them. He originally thought that after so much time had passed, Qi Li should have forgotten him a long time ago, but now it seems that the development of things is not going as he expected. Xia Changqing had no choice but to adhere to the principle of taking one step at a time. Let me introduce you to everyone. This is Miss Qi Li. She was born in a wild football goal and inherited the Xiaoxiami hero 100 years ago. Miss Qi, these are my brothers and sisters. This is Gu Yuxun. This is Guan Wei. You must know him. This is Dan Fang Weiming, and she is Shen Xiangan. Xia Changqing finally introduced Shen Xiangan. At this time, Qi Li's eyes had turned from Xia Changqing to Shen Xiangan. With Shen Xiangan's beauty, even Qi Li was shocked. Maybe this was the legendary beauty that could make fish sink to the bottom of the water and geese fall, and moon hide and flowers blush. Suddenly, Qi Li felt a little depressed. Compared with her, it didn't seem difficult to understand why Brother Xia chose Miss Shen. Chapter 253, Heartache. Shen Xiangan frowned slightly, staring at Keely in front of her. Although it was only a few words, Shen Xiangan had already seen that there was some kind of relationship between her and Xia Changqing, and this relationship was unknown to her. How could this be? It was not wrong to be vigilant against a strange woman who suddenly appeared. And Keely, from Shen Xiangan's actions, had seen Shen Xiangan's unusual feelings for Xia Changqing. The two women who had never met each other, as soon as they met, were like fire and water. There seemed to be a tragic atmosphere around, which made Gu Yuxuan and others step back quietly, trying to avoid this tragic field. Miss Qi, are you here alone? Why don't you see the figure of Father Qi? After a slight silence, Xia Changqing suddenly spoke up. This silent atmosphere was too awkward, so it would be better to find some topics to talk about. Keely bowed to Xia Changqing, and in order not to let Shen Xiangan look down on her, she even held back the tears in her eyes. However, facing Xia Changqing's topic of conversation, Keely answered the question irrelevantly. Brother Xia, you haven't told me where you have been during this period of time. Xia Changqing looked at Keely, sighed in his heart, and said the truth. By chance, I became a disciple of the old predecessor Wuxiazi, and became a disciple of Xiaoyao Valley. Because of the poisoning, I stayed in Xiaoyao Valley. I'm sorry for not telling you and your daughter. So Brother Xia has become a disciple of the old predecessor Wuxiazi. Congratulations, Xiaoyao Valley is indeed much better than our Wild Bull goal. Faced with Keely's remarks, Xia Changqing could only smile bitterly, not knowing how to answer. Is this Miss Shen also a disciple of Xiaoyao Valley? Keely suddenly turned his attention to Shen Xiangan again. Before Xia Changqing could explain, Shen Xiangan said, I'm not a disciple of Xiaoyao Valley. I live in Wangaya Village. Wangaya Village and Xiaoyao Valley are separated by only a bridge. My father is a genius doctor. Brother Xia often goes to Xiaoyao Valley to learn medical skills from my father. The one who is close to the water gets the moon first. Keely immediately had this idea in her mind, but Shen Xiangan's threat was one thing, and the final result depended on Xia Changqing's attitude. Brother Xia, Xiaoyao Valley is so close to Luoyang City. Why don't you come back to see me? Keely asked, staring into Xia Changqing's eyes. This question made Xia Changqing not know how to answer. He lowered his eyes and decided to cut the Gordian knot. It would not benefit anyone if it dragged on like this. Miss Qi, practicing martial arts is more important to me. If I hadn't had something to do, I wouldn't have gone to Luoyang City. Keely's expression condensed slightly, and she asked unwillingly, Brother Xia, have you ever been back to Luoyang City since you joined Xiaoyao Valley? Looking at Keely's expectant eyes, Xia Changqing knew what kind of answer she wanted, but unfortunately, he couldn't give her a good result. I have been back. As soon as these three words came out, a certain spirit in Keely disappeared instantly, and she no longer looked into Xia Changqing's eyes, but lowered her head. Oh, I see. Keely's dull voice sounded. Xia Changqing knew that she had understood his feelings. If he didn't make a decision, he would suffer from the chaos. At this time, it was not appropriate to comfort her. After a moment, Keely raised her head with a smile on her face, and she didn't seem to be depressed at all. Brother Xia, I'm very happy to see you again today. I wish you can get a good ranking in the Youth Heroes Conference. After Keely finished speaking, she turned around and left immediately. She was afraid that, if she stayed any longer, she would burst into tears. Xia Changqing looked at Keely's figure as she left, and did not speak to keep her. Forgetting each other in the rivers and lakes, and being well on their own is the best result. The happiest person must be Shen Xiangan. She originally thought that she would have another rival in love, but she didn't expect Xia Changqing to clearly reject her. After Keely left, Shen Xiangan's eyes looked at Xia Changqing with a little more tenderness. Xia Changqing noticed Shen Xiangan's eyes, and he did not forget that there was still a problem that had not been solved. But how to make it clear to Shen Xiangan was Xia Changqing's more headache. But now Xia Changqing didn't have time to deal with this matter, because the Youth Heroes Conference was about to begin. The person in charge of hosting this Youth Heroes Conference was Xia Changqing's acquaintance, Master Wuhu of Shaolin Temple. The Youth Heroes Conference was of course different from the martial arts competitions among the people of the rivers and lakes, although the level of martial arts was a very important factor. However, if you want to become the leader of the young heroes, you can't rely on martial arts alone. You need to be good at both civil and military affairs to become the leader. I declare the official start of this Young Heroes Conference. Please prepare to answer questions. The first item of the Young Heroes Conference is the literary test, which tests your knowledge of music, chess, calligraphy, painting, poetry, wine, and flowers. Regarding the literary test, of course, it is impossible for the examiner to ask questions one by one. Instead, it is like the imperial examination. Everyone is gathered together, and each person is given a test paper. After answering the questions on the test paper, the examiner will correct it. The pen, ink, paper and inkstone are all provided by the organizer, Shaolin Temple, to prevent cheating. Of course, those who can become examiners are all highly skilled in martial arts, and ordinary cheating methods cannot escape their sharp eyes. In the past Young Heroes Conference, it is not that no one has cheated. The disciples of the big sects did not cheat. It was not that they did not dare, but that they could not afford the consequences of being caught. Even if you pass the literary test by chance, you will still have to show your true colors when you come to the martial arts test. Therefore, except for those who are hot-headed and ignorant, no one dares to cheat at the Young Heroes Conference. The literary test does not limit the number of people, so Xia Changqing, Guan Wei, and Dongfang Weiming all entered the examination room for the literary test. Each person was assigned a seat, and the two seats were far apart, so it was impossible to learn from each other. During this period, Xia Changqing also saw many familiar people, such as Jiang Yu, who he had just met, and Qi Li, who was sad after seeing him. With just a simple glance, Xia Changqing roughly calculated that there were more than 100 people participating in this Young Heroes Conference, and only 40 people were able to pass the literary test and successfully enter the martial arts test. Although it is not an imperial examination, where thousands of troops cross a single plank bridge, if you don't want to embarrass yourself, you have to work hard. Master Wu, who controlled the whole scene, he took everyone in his eyes with a glance. After making sure that everyone was ready, he said lightly, "The literary test begins." Chapter 254, Written Test. Xia Changqing spread out the paper in front of him. He did not start writing like the others. Instead, he examined the whole paper from top to bottom. For no reason, Xia Changqing's mouth curled up and revealed a knowing smile. He himself had almost forgotten how long it had been since he had taken an exam. Now he picked up the pen to answer questions again, and it felt like a lifetime ago. The test questions were all true or false questions. You only needed to tick the answer you wanted to choose after each question. Although it was a literary test, it was certainly not the same as the imperial examination. After all, those who came to participate in the Youth Hero Conference were all disciples of the Jianghu sect, and martial arts was the most important. Xia Changqing picked up the pen and wrote his name on the top first. The scope of the test questions was very broad, ranging from medical knowledge to piano, chess, calligraphy, painting, poetry, wine, and flowers. There were 50 questions, covering a wide range. The environment in the room became quiet, and only the sound of scratching ears and cheeks continued to sound. The masters from Shaolin Temple were highly skilled in martial arts and walked silently. Even if they passed by a candidate, they would not attract their attention. For Xia Changqing, who had studied medicine for such a long time with the divine doctor, and learned about music, chess, calligraphy and painting with Wu Xiaozi, the questions on this test paper were not that difficult. Xia Changqing picked up the pen and kept ticking on the test paper. He only needed a few seconds to answer a question. There were only 50 questions on the test paper. Xia Changqing spent a little more time on some difficult questions, but overall, he was able to finish these questions very smoothly. After ticking a circle on the last question, Xia Changqing put down the pen in his hand. His expression did not fluctuate at all. These questions were too simple for him. Standing up, Xia Changqing put the test paper in the hands of Master Wuhu. In Woohoo's surprised eyes, Xia Changqing quietly left the room without disturbing others. He turned around and glanced, and found that most people in the room were scratching their heads. He shook his head speechlessly, paying special attention to Guan Wei and Fang Weiming. The two junior brothers who were devoted to martial arts had sad faces. They didn't pay much attention to these things at ordinary times, but now when they needed them, they turned into muggle in an instant. Without stopping for a long time, Master Wu was still looking at him. Xia Changqing turned and left the examination room. The moment Xia Changqing stepped out of the door, the people waiting outside all cast their eyes on him. This really made Xia Changqing feel like he was taking the college entrance examination in the past. After seeing Xia Changqing come out first, Gu Yuxuan immediately came up to him. "Changqing, how did you come out so quickly? Have you finished the test questions?" Xia Changqing nodded calmly and gave Gu Yuxuan a look, indicating that he would talk later if he had anything to say. With so many people watching him at the scene, Xia Changqing didn't want to show off in front of people. Seeing this, Gu Yuxuan said no more and walked aside with Xia Changqing, quietly waiting for Guan Wei and Fang Weiming to come out. This wait lasted half an hour. Fortunately, everyone present had practiced well and had enough patience. The time for the written test has come. Please put down your pens. The voice of Master Wu reached outside the room, causing Xia Changqing and Gu Yuxuan, who were resting with their eyes closed, to open their eyes. A moment later, a crowd of people rushed out of the room. There were people who handed in their papers early like Xia Changqing. There were quite a few of them. After all, some disciples trained by major sects would be exposed to this knowledge early. According to the way the Young Heroes Conference judged, if the scores were the same, the time of handing in the papers would be used to determine whether they could advance. Therefore, as long as they wanted to enter the martial arts test stably and were more confident in themselves, they all chose to hand in the papers as soon as they finished. In the case of Guan Wei and Fang Weiming, if they handed in the papers after the test time was up, their chances of advancing to the martial arts test would be very slim. What can I say about you two? You didn't pay attention to it before, but now you know it's important, right? I think you two don't even have a chance to advance to the martial arts test. Gu Yuxuan looked at Guan Wei and Fang Weiming with regret. The two brothers were dejected, no longer the high-spirited look they had just shown when they participated in the Young Heroes Conference. As children of the Jianghu, we only need to be good at martial arts. Why do we need to take a written test? Guan Wei muttered in dissatisfaction. Long before the Young Heroes Conference began, Gu Yuxuan had told the participants to learn the knowledge of the written test. But Guan Wei didn't take it seriously, and Fang Weiming had never received any knowledge in this area since he was a child. After joining Xiaoyao Valley, he had to start from scratch, so his accumulation was still too weak. Listening to Guan Wei's complaints, Gu Yuxuan shook his head helplessly. It was too late to say anything now. If you don't learn this knowledge, do you want to become a reckless man who only knows martial arts? Xia Changqing suddenly said lightly, which immediately made Guan Wei blush. On the one hand, he was unable to finish the questions quickly, and on the other hand, it was because Xia Changqing was the first to finish. They were all brothers from the same sect, so how could Guan Wei not feel ashamed? Okay, stop talking. Now we just need to wait for the results. Gu Yuxuan ended the conversation. Except for them, everyone else stood outside the room, nervously waiting for the results of the assessment. Of course, there were also people who were confident and not worried about the results at all. Inside the room, Master Wu led the monks of Shaolin Temple to quickly mark the test papers. The test papers for the written test had fixed answers. Right was right and wrong was wrong. There was no need to have any questions, so these test papers were also marked very quickly. Without waiting for too long, Master Wu strode out with the results of the promotion in his hand. The following is the list of promotions. Everyone listen carefully. Master Wu's voice was mixed with internal strength. Although the voice was not loud, it sounded clearly in everyone's ears. The list of promotions for the written test of this year's Youth Hero Conference is as follows. First place, Xia Changqing from Xiaoyao Valley. Xia Changqing stood with his arms folded, without any surprise on his face. The happiest person was Shen Xiangyan, whose face was filled with joy, and she was happy for Xia Changqing. Xia Valley was still well known in the martial arts world, and the disciples of other sects did not show any surprise when they heard that the first place was from Xia Valley. Wu Xiaozi was a scholar, and it would be a joke if his disciples could not even pass the literary examination. Chapter 255 Martial Arts Test. The commotion in the crowd did not disturb Master Wu Hu from reading the list in his hand. Second place, Fang Yunhe of Wudang sect. Third place, Master Wu Hu's voice was neither fast nor slow. Those who heard their names were extremely excited, while those who did not hear their names were all anxious. Just like Guan Wei, he already felt uneasy standing next to Xia Changqing, scratching his head and cheeks anxiously. 39th place, Gong Guangji of Beikao sect. 40th place, Guan Wei of Xia Valley. Having said this, Master Wu Hu gently closed the list in his hand. Those who passed the literary test and advanced are the above 40 young heroes. Congratulations to all of you. The martial arts test will be held tomorrow morning. I would like to inform you of the rules of the martial arts test. I hope you will go back and prepare as soon as possible. Master Wu Hu looked at the chaos, frowned, and his voice was mixed with a trace of the power of the lion's roar. Silence. Everyone present felt a roar in their ears and unconsciously stopped talking. Master Wu Hu smiled with satisfaction. The rules of the martial arts test are that the teams will be divided into 2 teams according to the ranking of the literary test. The first, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 39th will be 1 team, and the 2nd, 4th, 40th will be 1 team. The last person in each team will challenge the winner in turn. The winner will advance, and the loser will be eliminated until there is only 1 person left in each team. The 2 will have the final showdown. The winner will become the champion of this youth hero conference. As soon as Master Wu Hu finished speaking, Guan Wei on the side began to count on his fingers how many opponents he had to defeat in order to get the title of the champion. Xia Changqing really didn't want to hit Guan Wei, but he was very relaxed. As the first place, strictly speaking, he only needed to play 2 games to become the champion. The results of the literary test are important and very important. Although for those who are confident in themselves, as long as they can enter the martial arts test, the ranking of the literary test is not important. The most miserable ones are the 39th and 40th at the end. This rule is a bit unfair to those who are ranked lower. So after Master Wu Hu finished explaining the rules, a huge discussion started. You don't have to complain. The rules of this Young Heroes conference have always been like this. If you are not as skilled as others, you have to admit it. Instead of complaining here, you might as well go back and rest early. You will be the first to fight tomorrow. Gu Yuxuan said to Guan Wei, who was complaining on the side. Just as Gu Yuxuan finished lecturing Guan Wei, Master Wu Hu's voice rang again. That's all for today. Young heroes can go back and rest. The martial arts test will be held tomorrow morning. Unlike the literary test, which only takes half a day, the martial arts test takes a long time. After all, if the 2 sides are evenly matched, it takes a lot of effort to determine the winner. And because the challenge is from the back to the front, the person who wins in a row needs a lot of time to rest and recover, so the martial arts test cannot be completed in 1 or 2 days. This is a grand event. The major sects from all over the world need 10 days or half a month to travel. If the Young Heroes Conference only lasts 1 or 2 days to decide the champion, it would be too much of a joke. After Master Wu Hu finished speaking, he turned around and left with the monks of Shaolin Temple. Even if someone was dissatisfied with the list of promoted, they did not dare to question Shaolin Temple. The crowd gradually dispersed and returned to the other courtyards to prepare for tomorrow's battle. In the Shaolin courtyard, Gu Yuxuan was introducing his opponent tomorrow to Guan Wei. Yi Gu, a disciple of Kang sect, has a solitary personality and is not good at speaking. His Kang boxing is superb, but you are good at swordsmanship, and weapons are not prohibited in martial arts tests. As the saying goes, an inch longer is an inch stronger. If he is unarmed, you will undoubtedly have the advantage. But nothing is absolute. Kang swordsmanship is also famous in the martial arts world, but I haven't heard of how Yi Gu uses Kang swordsmanship. Overall, in the first battle tomorrow, you still have the advantage. so you don't need to be too nervous. The senior brothers will cheer you on. Gu Yuxuan has tried his best to comfort Guan Wei, but the boy is still a little nervous. However, no matter how nervous he is, what is coming has come. Guan Wei slowly stroked his long sword. It's not like he hasn't killed enemies or chopped people, but this is the first time he has fought with people in public. Friendship comes first, fighting comes second. I have already said that we will stop fighting at a certain point. If there is a crisis, I will interrupt your fighting, and then I will judge who wins and who loses. Do you two have any objections? Master Wu, who stood between Guan Wei and Yi Guan, said loudly. Junior knows. Guan Wei took a deep breath and replied. Yi Gu lived up to his reputation as a loner. Even when Master Wu Hu asked him questions, he was expressionless and just nodded very coldly. Master Wu Hu certainly didn't care. How could a monk get angry over such a small matter? Since the two young heroes have already known, then I declare that the first round of the martial arts test of the Youth Hero Conference has officially begun. Guan Wei looked at Yi Gu, who was unarmed. He didn't expect that when he was using a knife, the other party still chose to be unarmed. Yi Gu did this because he was either arrogant or confident. But no matter which situation it was, he needed to be serious. Swish. Guan Wei drew his sword, but Yi Gu didn't notice when he drew his sword. When he reacted, a streak of light had already reached his head. His pupils shrank suddenly, and Yi Gu punched straight ahead. With a loud bang, his fist hit the blade of Guan Wei. The fight on the ring had already begun. Xia Changqing, Gu Yuxuan and others stood in one place, staring at the ring, feeling nervous for Guan Wei. Yi Gu's Kantan fist is really powerful. It can even be equal to junior brother Guan. It seems that it will take some time for the two of them to decide the winner. Although the fight on the ring had just begun, Gu Yuxuan saw at a glance that the strength of Yi Gu and Guan Wei was on paragraph. Guan Wei's sword was full of shadows, and only the sword light could be seen, but not the blade. While Yi Gu was moving his body around, he dodged all of Guan Wei's attacks. The two fought back and forth, and the people below also enjoyed it. Whether it was Guan Wei or Yi Gu, they were both outstanding young men in the martial arts world. Their martial arts skills were higher than those of some small sects leaders and elders. The Young Heroes Conference was worth the trip. Chapter 256 Elimination. Guan Wei used the Qinglang sword technique, with large and wide moves, which was very similar to the sword techniques used by generals, to kill enemies on the battlefield. It is said that the Guan family inherited the sword technique from Guan Yu, one of the 5 tiger generals of Shu. In the Changhang escort agency, there is a Qinglang Yanyu sword, which no one can use except Guan Changhang, the chief escort. Guan Wei has mastered the essence of the Qinglang sword technique passed down from his family. The sword is heavy, and when it hits the stone surface of the arena, it immediately causes a scene of earth and rocks flying. This kind of grand scene is very exciting to watch. The disadvantages of Yi Gu's bare hands soon became apparent. If his martial arts were much higher than Guan Wei's, he could easily defeat Guan Wei with his bare hands. However, when the two are evenly matched, it would be difficult to fight against the enemy with bare hands. Junior brother Guan is going to win. As soon as Gu Yuxuan finished speaking, Xia Changqing nodded in agreement. Guan Wei's sword techniques are not only the Qinglang sword techniques passed down from his family, but he also knows the Xiaoyao sword techniques of Xiaoyao Valley. Xiaoyao's swordplay emphasizes dexterity. As long as Guan Wei suddenly changes his moves, Yi Gu will be defeated when he cannot react. Sure enough, Guan Wei's momentum suddenly changed on the stage, and he changed his moves. His swordplay speed immediately became 3 times faster. Under the sudden change, Yi Gu could not react at all for a while, and immediately tried to parry in a panic. Guan Wei's swordplay is changeable. He spotted a flaw in Yi Gu, and swung his sword diagonally upward. The blade passed through Yi Gu's arm, and a wound immediately made Yi Gu cry out in pain. With his arm injured, Yi Gu had no ability to fight back. However, after 10 moves, Guan Wei slashed at Yi Gu's neck. Yi Gu's eyes widened, and he no longer looked cold. There was only the light of the sword in his eyes. His mind told him to avoid this move, otherwise he would really die. But his body seemed to be frozen, and could not move. In Yi Gu's mind, seeing the sword light getting stronger and stronger, Master Wu Hu finally made a move. He moved his body, and no one saw when he appeared between Guan Wei and Yigu. However, Master Wu Hu had already stretched out a hand lightly, and with only 2 fingers, he pinched Guan Wei's blade, making it difficult for him to move forward. I declare that the winner of the first round is Guan Wei, the young man of Xiaoyao Valley. Master Wu Hu put down his arm and said calmly, Guan Wei won the victory, and everyone in Xiaoyao Valley was naturally happy, but Xia Changqing's attention was on Wu Hu. The master of the Shaolin temple, who was called Wuzi, really lived up to his reputation. Xia Changqing said in his heart that, if he had the chance, he would rather fight with such an opponent. Xia Changqing knew very well that, although his current strength was much higher than that of the younger generation, he was still a level lower than the masters of the older generation like Wu Hu. However, if he wants to make progress in martial arts, it is impossible to do it behind closed doors. Only by fighting with masters can he find out his own shortcomings. Looking back at the ring, Guan Wei won, and advanced to the next round. Next, it was the battle between the 39th and 37th place. Facing such a competition, Xia Changqing seemed to be uninterested. Watching such a battle was meaningless to him. The reason why he watched Guan Wei and others' competition was just because Guan Wei was his junior brother. As a senior brother, he always had to cheer for his junior brother. Everyone in Xiaoyao Valley returned to the other courtyard. Guan Wei's competition had ended in the morning, and he had another one in the afternoon. Now he had to go back to recuperate. In the other courtyard, Gu Yuxuan began to introduce Guan Wei to his next opponent. I don't know how Gu Yuxuan is so powerful, as if there is no one he doesn't know. When this question was mentioned, Gu Yuxuan smiled mysteriously and said that he would have the opportunity to introduce a friend to them. His ability is not considered extraordinary. His friend is truly extraordinary. There is nothing in the world that he does not know. Of course, Xia Changqing heard that this was a bit of bragging, but he did not doubt whether such a person existed. No matter what kind of world it is, there is no shortage of people like Xia Changqing. Guan Wei's next opponent is from the Qingcheng sect, named Liuzikan. The Qingcheng sect is famous for its swordsmanship. Although the opponent is unknown, how could someone who can break into the Young Heroes Conference be a simple character? The time of active preparation passed quickly, and it soon came to the afternoon. Guan Wei stood on the ring again. Liuzikan held a sword in his hand, and he was gentle and refined, more like a scholar than a swordsman. As soon as the competition started, Liuzikan drew his sword, and his scholarly temperament quickly disappeared, and he became fierce. This change in temperament made Guan Wei's expression slightly stunned. He did not expect that a person could change so much. Liuzikan is indeed not a simple character. His sword skills are unpredictable, and coupled with his agile footwork, Guan Wei can't touch him at all. Xia Changqing and Gu Yuxuan looked at each other, and they all saw from each other's eyes that Guan Wei was going to lose. After all, Guan Wei had practiced Xiaoyao swordsmanship for too short a time, and he didn't master it perfectly. He was not a genius like Xia Changqing, who could master a martial art in a short time. Guan Wei still used the tactics in the morning, and at the beginning he still used Qinglang swordsmanship. However, Qinglang swordsmanship emphasizes opening and closing. When you can't even touch the opponent's shadow, it's not appropriate to use Qinglang swordsmanship. Turning around, Guan Wei began to use Xiaoyao swordsmanship, as graceful as a startled swan, and barely managed to fight with Liuzikan. But Guan Wei's defeat was inevitable. It was not beyond the expectations of Xia Changqing and Gu Yuxuan. After 70 moves, Guan Wei gradually fell into a disadvantage. When Master Wu Hu announced that Liuzikan won, Guan Wei jumped off the stage, walked to Xia Changqing and others, sighed dejectedly, and felt guilty for his defeat. Gu Yuxuan hurriedly comforted him. Although Guan Wei had lost, their Xiaoyao Valley had not lost. They still had Xia Changqing, who was ranked first. With Xia Changqing's martial arts, these people were no match for him. Gu Yuxuan was very confident that the winner and the champion would definitely be their Xiaoyao Valley. After Guan Wei was defeated, Xia Changqing had no interest in the next competition. Although knowing yourself and the enemy can ensure victory in 100 battles, in order to gain his attention, the opponent still needs to overcome all the obstacles and come to him. 4 competitions were held in one day. Even if all the competitions were completed, it would take nearly 10 days. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 257, Martial Arts Will. Brother, let's go. The competition is about to start. Today we will be able to decide the 3rd and 4th place, and your opponent for tomorrow will be here. Early in the morning, Dan Fang Weiming came to inform Xia Changqing that he was going to the competition venue. He knew that, if he didn't come to inform him, Xia Changqing would never go. It's the same. If you go to watch for me, just come back and inform me as soon as possible if there is any news. I won't go to the scene. In fact, even if Dan Fang Weiming came to call him in person, Xia Changqing would not go. Dan Fang Weiming sighed helplessly and looked at Gu Yuxuan on the side. The eldest brother shrugged his shoulders, indicating that he could not help. They knew that Xia Changqing was just like that, and what he decided could not be changed by others. In the end, only Dan Fang Weiming and Guan Wenyi ran to the scene to watch the game with great interest. After seeing Xia Changqing's confident performance, Gu Yuxuan also felt relieved. The Young Heroes Conference had been held for who knows how many times, and the position of the champion would finally fall to their Xiaoyao Valley again. After Dan Fang Weiming and Guan Wenyi returned to the other courtyard, the excitement of the two people could not be dispersed for a long time. Today's competition was very exciting. It would be a pity for Xia Changqing and Gu Yuxuan not to go. Xia Changqing also learned from Dan Fang Weiming that his opponent tomorrow was a young man named Xiaoyao. This person was cynical and had a mysterious origin. He was only known to be from the Beggars sect, but he had never been famous in the world before. In the literary test, he ranked 17th, which was a relatively backward position, but in the martial arts test, he passed 3 levels, killed 5 generals, and came to Xia Changqing. From his previous competition process, we can know that the opponent is good at using fists and feet, not weapons. Brother, you are good at swordsmanship. That guy named Xiaoyao, with bare hands, is definitely not your opponent. Dan Fang Weiming said confidently. Xiaoyao? Xia Changqing muttered the name and said with a smile, this guy's called Xiaoyao, and he has a lot of connections with our Xiaoyao Valley. At this time, Gu Yuxuan's face showed a look of realization, and he said thoughtfully, I heard that the former leader of the Beggars sect, Senior Xia once accepted a young man as his last disciple. This person came from the Beggars sect and his origins are mysterious. It is very likely that he is Senior Xia disciple. Changqing, you must not underestimate the enemy. If the opponent is good at boxing and kicking, it is very likely that he has mastered the Beggars sect's unique martial arts, the 18 dragon palms and the dragon kicks. Oh, the 18 dragon palms and the dragon kicks? Xia Changqing instantly became interested. The 18 dragon palms is a very famous martial art, and he has been coveting it for a long time. He just doesn't know if Xiaoyao can do it, and whether he can directly hit a dragon. Xia Changqing instantly became interested in tomorrow's competition. In anticipation, the second day of the competition came so suddenly. Because the finals were approaching, the atmosphere on the scene became more heated. After all, this was the last day of the competition of the Youth Heroes Conference. Today, the new champion would be decided. As a popular candidate for the champion, Xia Changqing attracted a lot of discussion as soon as he appeared on the scene. The top 4 candidates have been announced. Xia Changqing vs Xiaoyao. Fang Yunhua vs Fu Jianhan. Xia Changqing was born in Xiaoyao Valley. Xiaoyao was born in the Beggars sect. Fang Yunhua was a disciple of the Wudang sect, and Fu Jianhan was a complete genius. Fu Jianhan, he is really a genius. Legend has it that he has no master. He is a self-taught genius, a swordsmanship genius. He relied on himself to comprehend the overlord sword technique from a set of military tactics. Since he walked the rivers and lakes, he has no rivals. I just don't know if he is a match for Fang Yunhua. When Guan Wenyi said this, his tone was full of admiration. Facing Guan Wei's statement, Gu Yuxian also nodded in agreement. I also admire Fu Jianlin very much, but I heard that Fu Jianlin seems to have some relationship with the Sword Saint, but I don't know if it's true or not. Big brother, don't say that Fu Jianlin has a relationship with the Sword Saint just because he uses a sword. Guan Wei said a little unhappy. Gu Yuxian's dangerous eyes immediately cast over. You kid is really brave. Dare to speak to big brother in such a tone. Guan Wei immediately shut up. Big brother has a big fist, so naturally what he says is what it means. Regardless of the quarrel between the two, at least one thing can be proved. That is, Fu Jianlin is a man of high martial arts skills, no less than Fang Yunhe, who came from a famous sect. Without letting the audience wait for too long, the competition between Fang Yunhe and Fu Jianlin officially began under the auspices of Master Wuhu. As soon as the two started, the situation changed immediately, and it became a strong duel. Fu Jianlin's overlord swordsmanship, because it was inherited from the art of war, is violent, coupled with a unique internal strength, makes him seem like the incarnation of the ancient overlord, heroic and soaring into the sky. Fu Jianlin slashed down with his sword, and immediately a murderous aura emerged on the battlefield, which was much stronger than Guan Wen's family inherited Qinglang swordsmanship. Even the audience standing under the ring felt an invisible wind blowing at this time, mixed with a strong smell of blood. His no one expected that Fu Jianlin would be the king bomb. As soon as he made a move, everyone gasped and couldn't help but exclaimed in their hearts, this boy is so terrifying. In fact, Fang Yunhe, who was standing on the ring, felt even stronger. He seemed to be stared at by a tiger that wanted to eat him, and his hair stood up unconsciously. Fear gripped Fang Yunhe's heart tightly, making him feel a little difficult to breathe. The internal energy unique to the Wudang sect flowed in Fang Yunhe's body, and a warm feeling came over him. Fang Yunhe concentrated his spirit, strengthened his mind, and removed the fear in his heart. The long sword in his hand was twisted, and the Teikai sword intent emerged around him. Am I dazzled? I seem to see a yin and yang fish pattern slowly rotating behind Fang Yunhe. Guan Wei murmured unconsciously. Brother, you are not mistaken, I seem to see it too. Dong Fang Weiming nodded, and said very confidently. Gu Yuxian took a deep look at Fang Yunhe and Fu Jianhan, then turned to them and said, that is their martial arts will, which is influencing the minds of the people around them. Only after fully mastering a martial art can one condense the martial arts will under coincidence. Are these two people monsters? Each generation is stronger than the previous one. Chapter 258 Battle with Xiao Yao. Fang Yunhe of Wudang sect is a master of Teikai swordsmanship. His sword intent is so powerful that he can defeat a common person with just a little effort. However, Fu Jianlin is too talented. His overlord swordsmanship can defeat Fang Yunhe's Teikai sword intent with his strength. These two people are so strong. Guan Wei's sight touched the hearts of the people around him. On the ring, Fu Jianlin leaned on the ground with his sword and panted heavily, proving that his victory over Fang Yunhe was not easy. But fortunately, the final winner is Fu Jianhan. He is the leader of this youth hero conference. After Master Wuhu announced that Fu Jianlin won, Gu Yuxian and others looked at Xia Changqing. Xia Changqing also smiled. After waiting for such a long time, it was finally his turn to appear. The next two opponents are Xia Changqing of Xiao Yao Valley and Xiao Yao of Beggar's Sect. After Master Wuhu finished his announcement, Xia Changqing saw a young man in plain clothes on the other side of the ring opposite him. He rose from the stands, flew through the air, and landed on the ring with great ease. Brother, go ahead, you can't fall behind the other side. Changqing, come on. Kill him, Changqing. Xia Changqing was calm and clear-minded. He ignored the clamor of Gu Yuxian and others. He took a step forward, and his steps were like lotus flowers. Xia Changqing took one step at a time slowly, stepping in the air, as if the place he stepped on was the land. He walked to the ring step by step. Master Wuhu deliberately looked at Xia Changqing. He had seen many people who used Qinggang to directly fly to the ring. But for someone like Xia Changqing, who had no place to borrow power in the air, he could still walk on the ground, as if it was flat. It took a very deep internal strength to do it. Are you two ready? Master Wuhu chanted a Buddhist chant. If you two are ready, then we can start. Just as Master Wu finished speaking, Xiao Yao had already started to move. He looked serious and approached Xia Changqing in 2 steps. Dragon kick. Xiao Yao spread his legs and saw the shadows of his legs covering Xia Changqing. There seemed to be a faint dragon roar in the air, shocking Xia Changqing's mind. At this time, Xia Changqing had no time to draw his sword. Xiao Yao's dragon kick was really powerful. In just a moment, he had kicked more than a dozen times. However, Xia Changqing did not look panicked. His feet were deeply rooted in the ground. His lower body did not move at all, but his upper body was twisting strangely, dodging every kick of Xiao Yao. What kind of body movement is this? Xiao Yao was shocked, and his internal strength began to circulate. The dragon roars around him became louder. There seemed to be a golden light covering his legs, and the speed of his kicks was a little faster. Xia Changqing tapped his feet a few times, and his body retreated directly backwards without any support. Clang! With a crisp sound, Xia Changqing had already pulled out the sword in his hand, and the sword hummed, and the shadow of the sword overlapped with Xiao Yao's leg shadows. Bang! 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 There were constant muffled sounds in the air, which were the faint explosions caused by the collision of Xia Changqing's sword energy and Xiao Yao's Shenlong leg technique. In a moment of negligence, 2 unclear figures suddenly separated and fell on both sides of the ring. Although Xia Changqing's expression did not move, the long sword in his hand was already full of gaps, which were all caused by Xiao Yao's kicks. As for Xiao Yao, his panting sounded a little heavy. When he looked down, he could clearly see that the cloth on his legs had also been torn. In the collision just now, the 2 people were evenly matched, and neither of them got the advantage. Great swordsmanship. Xiao Yao Valley is indeed worthy of its reputation. Xiao Yao praised. With his long sword in hand, Xia Changqing chuckled. Your leg skills are also good. It seems that the rumors are true. You really learned from senior Xia Changqing. I just wonder how good your 18 dragon subduing palms are? After hearing this, Xiao Yao's expression immediately became serious. Since you want to see the 18 dragon subduing palms so much, you'd better be careful. After saying this, Xiao Yao lowered his waist and dismounted, stretched out his 2 palms, and drew a circle in front of him. Xia Changqing's expression immediately moved, and he actually saw a golden dragon coming out of the circle drawn in front of Xiao Yao. The golden dragon swam in the air for a circle, and it seemed to have found its target, and immediately swam towards Xia Changqing. As the golden dragon swam, its body was also expanding rapidly at an incredible speed. Roar! A dragon roared loudly, and at the same time, a huge golden dragon opened its terrifying mouth, as if it wanted to swallow Xia Changqing in one gulp, and came to Xia Changqing and devoured him. Xiao Yao's internal energy flowed rapidly in Xia Changqing's body. Xia Changqing drew many sword shadows in front of him, and the sword intent was grim. One after another, invisible swords shot towards the golden dragon. The golden dragon-shaped energy and Xia Changqing's sword intent collided with each other, and there was a loud bang. Xia Changqing only felt a huge force suddenly hit him, making it difficult for him to breathe. He could only try his best to turn his internal energy and grit his teeth to hold on. The golden dragon shadow passed through Xia Changqing's body, roared and rushed towards the distant sky, and gradually disappeared. Xiao Yao still maintained the posture of pushing his palms forward. His body was shaking slightly. It can be seen that he was also very strenuous to use this attack of the 18 dragon subduing palms. Xia Changqing looked even more miserable. The cracks on the sword in his hand gradually spread. With a crackling sound, it suddenly broke into pieces and fell to the ground. A mouthful of blood spit out from Xia Changqing's mouth. Only now did he feel better. Frowning and looking at the long sword that had become pieces, Xia Changqing grinned bitterly. In a short period of time, this was the second sword that had broken. It was too dangerous to travel around the world. It was safer to stay in Xiao Valley. Xia Changqing wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and looked up at Xiao Yao. The 18 palms of the dragon subduing is indeed worthy of its reputation. Xia Changqing said this with sincerity. In this blow, he had already suffered internal injuries. Even in the battle with Zhu and Mingzi, he had suffered similar injuries, and this was just one move of the 18 palms of the dragon subduing. Little did he know that when he saw Xia Changqing was still able to speak and stand, Xiao Yao was still very panicked. Although he could still use the 18 dragon subduing palms again, after another attack, he would not have the internal strength to fight again. Chapter 259, A Pitiful Victory. As a highly lethal trick, the 18 dragon palms consumes a lot of internal strength. Although Xiao Yao can use the 18 dragon palms, his internal strength cannot support him to use it too much. This is also a rather embarrassing situation. Xiao Yao is betting that Xia Changqing doesn't know how many moves of the 18 dragon palms he can use, and Xia Changqing is definitely not willing to bear the palm force of the 18 dragon palms again. But neither of them will take the initiative to admit defeat, so the battle has to continue. Xia Changqing shook his head and threw away the hilt in his hand with a headache. He wondered if he should go to the sword forging villa to find a durable sword, otherwise he would have to use a sword every time he fought, which was too wasteful. Suddenly, Xia Changqing missed his Valyrian steel sword named Winter, but since he had chosen to leave it to Elizabeth, he did not regret it. However, after the young heroes conference, he really had to find a sword. Thinking of this, Xia Changqing's eyes condensed. It was time to end the battle. He was following the Xiao Yao footwork, and in a moment, he was beside Xiao Yao. Xia Changqing put his fingers together like swords, and stabbed at Xiao Yao like lightning. Xiao Yao was startled, and moved his feet, using the Shenlong leg technique again. Xia Changqing's fingers were like sharp swords, colliding with Xiao Yao's legs, and waves of burning energy constantly invaded Xiao Yao's legs. It's so hot. Xiao Yao quickly moved away from Xia Changqing. He quickly put out the sporadic sparks on his legs, and then looked at Xia Changqing in disbelief. What kind of kung fu is this? Xia Changqing looked down at his sword finger with flames on the surface, and thought of a famous skill of a person who loved to show off. So he said loudly, "Flame sword, please teach me." The palm is turned up to become a knife, which is the flame knife. Putting fingers together like swords is the flame sword. There is actually such a martial art? Xiao Yao's face was full of disbelief. Xia Changqing curled his lips, but didn't say anything. You can send out dragon-shaped ki with one palm. Isn't it reasonable for my fingers to have some flames? After a brief conversation, the two collided again. During this time, Xiao Yao's shouting never stopped. Xiao Yao took a breath of cold air. He looked at his legs with fear. At this time, there were only a few pieces of cloth hanging on his legs. Most of the clothes were either cut off by Xia Changqing's sword energy, or burned by the flames. Fortunately, this was a martial arts competition for people from the rivers and lakes. The children of the rivers and lakes were not particular about trivial matters. Otherwise, Xiao Yao would definitely be accused of being immoral. But what was more serious was that his legs were full of red marks. Thanks to his ki protection, his white and tender thighs did not become roasted legs. It's time to give it a try. Xiao Yao knew very well that, if he only relied on the dragon leg technique, he would not be Xia Changqing's opponent. This kid had too many tricks. He could use finger techniques, fist techniques, and even leg techniques. The frequent changes of moves caught Xiao Yao off guard and he suffered a lot. Isn't it better to learn martial arts with quality rather than quantity? Why is this kid named Xia Changqing always able to do all kinds of martial arts? Is the master wrong? At this moment, a young man with a promising future fell into doubt. Right or wrong, he would not give up easily as the leader of the Young Heroes Conference. Xiao Yao dodged several times in a row and moved away from Xia Changqing. He took a deep breath and slowly pushed out the palm power of the 18 dragon subduing palms. Xia Changqing, who was not far away, also took a deep breath, knowing that the battle had come to a critical point. If he did not make a mistake, Xiao Yao would only have the power of this palm. As long as he could resist this palm, he would be the winner in the end. Exhale, inhale. Xia Changqing's breathing became long and distant. He clenched his fists and recalled the meaning of the baseball fist in his mind. A hazy feeling filled his body. Roar, the golden dragon roars. Roar, no, it's not one golden dragon, but two golden dragons. The two forces are entangled and rolling, rushing towards Xia Changqing in an unmatched posture. In the first moment after the palm strike, Xiao Yao's internal force was exhausted, and he sat directly on the ground. He was not sure whether Xia Changqing could resist it, so restoring his internal force in the first place was the most correct choice. Facing the two palm forces coming towards him, Xia Changqing's eyes were confused. He punched one up and one down, hitting the heads of the two golden dragons. Boom! A violent vibration sounded. Under the stands, Guan Wen's body swayed from side to side. He opened his mouth and looked at Gu Yuxuan in confusion. Big brother, did the earth dragon turn over? Gu Yuxuan looked at Guan Wen speechlessly. To be honest, he was as shocked as Guan Wen. Unknowingly, has Xia Changqing's martial arts reached this point? Not only Guan Wen, but also the audience who were closer to the ring, felt the stronger vibration effect. After they stabilized their bodies, they all looked at Xia Changqing with incredible eyes. Crack. On the ring, crisp cracking sounds were heard continuously. Where Xia Changqing stepped, the ground made of stone was broken into pieces. Bang! Xia Changqing's feet sank directly into the ground. He was motionless. If you get close to him, you can see that his arms are shaking violently. Xia Changqing slowly exhaled, then he groaned, and a trickle of blood slowly flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Although he blocked the attack, Xia Changqing was still injured. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Xia Changqing gritted his teeth and stood up straight. He could even hear the crackling sound of his bones rubbing against each other. Step by step, Xia Changqing walked towards Xiao Yao, who was sitting on the ground. Although he walked very slowly, the ring was only a little big, so he could finally reach it. How about it? Do you want to come again? Xiao Yao was stunned, then smiled bitterly. Don't, big brother, I give up. I don't even have the strength to stand up. How can I fight? You win. Xia Changqing nodded and looked in the direction of Master Wuhu. Master Wuhu's eyes were full of violent fluctuations. He looked around. The battle between Xia Changqing and Xiao Yao had caused great damage to the ring. He sighed in his heart. Even Master Wuhu had to sigh that each generation was stronger than the previous one. The winner is Xia Changqing of Xiao Yao Valley. Master Wuhu announced that he was done, and cheers rang out like thunder. Chapter 260, like a battlefield. In front of the arena of the Young Heroes Conference, the lively atmosphere could not be dispersed for a long time. Whether it was Xia Changqing and Xiao Yao who appeared later, or Fang Yunhe and Fu Jianlin who appeared first, they all showed everyone what the style of the younger generation is. Xia Changqing and Xiao Yao were both supported to leave. After the high-intensity battle, their bodies were exhausted. Brother, this is the Shaolin Xiao Huandan that Master Wuhu sent to you. It will help you recover from your injuries. The two people who advanced to the finals, Xia Changqing and Fu Jianhan, both needed time to recover to their prime. Therefore, Shaolin Temple not only sent Xiao Huandan, but also postponed the time of the finals to 2 days later. Xia Changqing took the Xiao Huandan from Dong Fang Weiming's hand, and did not act pretentiously. He swallowed it directly and recovered quickly. 2 days passed in a flash, and the battle for the top spot of the Young Heroes Conference finally came. Changqing, how is it? Are you sure? Looking at Xia Changqing's still slightly pale face, Gu Yuxuan asked with some worry. Even if he took the Xiao Huandan provided by Shaolin, the internal injuries would not be cured in just 2 days. Xia Changqing looked at the worried eyes in front of him and smiled indifferently. How can we be sure? Only after the fight can we know who has better martial arts. At the same time, Xia Changqing also keenly noticed the worried eyes from the crowd. He also saw Qi Li standing next to Old Man Qi from the corner of his eye. He sighed in his heart. Now is not the time to care about these issues. On the other side of the ring, unlike Xia Changqing who was cared for by others, Fu Jianhan, who stood with a sword in his arms, was alone, and his whole body revealed a cold atmosphere. Emotions will slow down the speed of a swordsman's sword. I don't think you are my opponent. Fu Jianlin said coldly. Xia Changqing curled his lips. This theory is simply nonsense. Overlord sword technique? I've been looking forward to it for a long time, but I don't know if you can match the strength of the ancient overlord. Master Wuhu glanced at the two people bickering with each other, and did not say anything to stop them. The spirit of youth, always striving for the first place, is the style that a young knight should have. The final of the Youth Hero Conference begins now. Master Wuhu announced loudly. On the ring, there seemed to be a breeze blowing, and the wind passed without a trace. When Fu Jianlin felt the breeze on his face, Xia Changqing's sword also arrived in front of him. What a fast sword. Fu Jianlin narrowed his eyes, and before he could draw his sword, he immediately raised the sword in his arms. Ding, with a barely detectable crisp sound, Fu Jianlin raised his long sword and blocked the path of Xia Changqing's sword tip. After failing to hit him, Xia Changqing immediately put away his sword, and with a twist of the sword flower, 3 sword lights were instantly separated, and they rushed towards Fu Jianlin from the top, middle and bottom. Fu Jianlin was not in a hurry. He grabbed the hilt of the sword with his right hand, unsheathed the long sword, and drew a circle in front of him. Ding, ding, ding. 3 more crisp sounds. Then, Fu Jianlin held the sword in his hand, and his momentum suddenly changed. A fierce breath rushed towards Xia Changqing. In an instant, Xia Changqing felt as if he had come to the battlefield, facing the charge of thousands of soldiers. Kill. Fu Jianlin shouted violently, making Xia Changqing's head dazed, and his mind went blank. Xia Changqing quickly bit the tip of his tongue, and in the severe pain, he broke free from Fu Jianlin's sword intent. At this time, Fu Jianlin's broadsword had already chopped above his head. Xiao's body movement was used subconsciously, as if someone behind him directly grabbed Xia Changqing and made him retreat. Fu Jianlin's sword momentum seemed to have used all his strength. Even if Xia Changqing dodged it, after chopping in the air, he still couldn't stop the force, and chopped on the ring. A straight crack suddenly appeared on the ring. Xia Changqing had no doubt that, if the sword landed on him, he would definitely be cut in half. With a step, Xia Changqing stopped his retreat. While Fu Jianlin's sword was not retracted, he used the free and easy body movement to take 2 steps, stepped on Fu Jianlin's sword, jumped up, and slashed the long sword in his hand towards Fu Jianlin's neck. Fu Jianlin suddenly shouted angrily, his eyes wide open, without the slightest feeling of coldness and loneliness just now. He did not retreat but moved closer, waving his left hand, and grabbing Xia Changqing's sword. Xia Changqing did not expect Fu Jianlin to use such a violent fighting style. He wanted to take Xia Changqing's sword, even if his left hand was injured. Thinking of this, Xia Changqing's eyes also flashed a trace of cruelty. Since you want to grab my long sword, then I'll let you grab it. The sword blade chopped Fu Jianlin's left hand that was blocking his throat, and blood splattered. If it weren't for the protection of the true key, this sword would have cut off half of Fu Jianlin's palm. At the same time, Fu Jianlin's goal had been achieved. He stuck Xia Changqing's long sword in his palm. Fu Jianlin's face did not show any pain, but became more violent, as if it was not him who almost had his palm chopped off. Xia Changqing followed Fu Jianlin's wishes and directly abandoned the sword. In exchange, Fu Jianlin's left hand was disabled. This deal seemed worth it, because although Xia Changqing has always used a sword, he is more powerful in boxing. After abandoning the sword, Xia Changqing stretched out a palm, like a flower brushing a willow, and imprinted it on Fu Jianlin's chest without any fireworks. Puff. Fu Jianlin staggered back 2 steps, but he had no intention of letting go of the sword in his hand. All his martial arts were on this sword. No matter what, he would not abandon the sword like Xia Changqing. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Fu Jianlin's momentum did not wilted, but became even stronger. He grinned, laughed, and swung his left hand. The long sword that was originally stuck in his palm was shaken out by his power. Dragging his bloody left hand, Fu Jianlin used all his overlord sword skills to cover Xia Changqing. Once again, Xia Changqing was dragged into the battlefield. Fu Jianlin seemed to have transformed into an invincible general on the battlefield, commanding thousands of soldiers to begin besieging Xia Changqing. Xia Changqing became a lone man in the sea, surrounded by a tsunami that was about to submerge him under the sea. With a dazed look, Xia Changqing looked at the sword light that filled his entire vision in front of him, and he used his power to raise his spirits, and his free and easy body skills began to operate to the extreme. Those who understand the meaning of free and easy can reach the realm of free and easy travel. The inherited martial arts of the free and easy valley are all named free and easy, whether it is the free and easy sword technique, free and easy body technique, free and easy palm technique. One can understand the meaning of free and easy from it. Then one can reach the realm of free and easy wandering endlessly. Chapter 261 Happy Journey. Xia Changqing suddenly had a feeling of enlightenment. Under the strong pressure from Fu Jianlun's overlord sword skill, his free and easy body skills seemed to have touched the shadow of the free and easy wandering state. And just this trace of the free and easy wandering artistic conception made Xia Changqing's body suddenly become illusory. He shuttled through the sword light, but the sword light did not touch his body at all. Wandering endlessly, the sword light full of murderous intent finally slowly disappeared, leaving only a messy arena, and Xia Changqing still stood there, as if the sword energy that Fu Jianlun had urged had completely bypassed his body and failed to cause any harm to him. Fu Jianlun looked at Xia Changqing in a daze. Was the man in front of him a ghost? Or an immortal? How could he be safe and sound? Even Fang Yunhe, a senior disciple of the Wudang school, could not resist with the Takai spirit. What happened just now? Fu Jianlun did not move, nor did Xia Changqing. He was still trying to capture the artistic conception of the free and easy travel. If he could fully grasp this artistic conception, his martial arts would be greatly improved. Fu Jianlun exhaled lightly, looking at Xia Changqing, who was distracted. A trace of anger flashed across his face. Even if you easily avoided my attack, we are still in the competition. What do you mean by your attitude? Don't you take me seriously? Fu Jianlun can't be blamed for thinking too much. Xia Changqing's posture seemed to be thinking about life instead of winning the competition. Anyone who saw it would be angry. Swish. Fu Jianlun's sword came out of Wu Wo, and he stabbed it towards Xia Changqing's chest. In his eyes, Xia Changqing's figure seemed to move strangely, and it seemed that there was no movement, and then his sword missed. After a slight silence, Fu Jianlun attacked Xia Changqing repeatedly without believing in evil. But Xia Changqing's body seemed to rely on instinct, and with just the smallest movement, Fu Jianlun's attacks all missed. At this moment, Fu Jianlun's expression was even more confused. What kind of body movement was this? Because of Fu Jianlun's attack, Xia Changqing also woke up from his epiphany. A trace of regret flashed in his eyes. After all, he was not able to fully master the meaning of free and easy travel. But it was okay. He had benefited a lot. The body movement that he used to dodge Fu Jianlun's attack just now was the best proof. Brother Fu, admit defeat. You are no longer my opponent now, Xia Changqing said softly. What he said was true, but Fu Jianlun felt very uncomfortable when he heard it. My sword path is to advance and never retreat. Fu Jianlun hummed, and the long sword shook, and the sword hummed, as if responding to Fu Jianlun's words. The next moment, the sword light enveloped Xia Changqing again. But now Xia Changqing was no longer nervous. He strolled leisurely in the garden, as if taking a walk after dinner, relaxed and free. Then, before the sword light in the sky dissipated, Xia Changqing had already arrived in front of Fu Jianlun. In his eyes of shock and anger, he lightly slapped his chest. Fu Jianlun was struck by lightning, staggered back a few steps, and supported himself with his sword to avoid falling. Xia Changqing followed Fu Jianlun like a shadow, and kept following his steps without moving away. He slapped his palms continuously, and although he did not use his internal force, he still beat Fu Jianlun back again and again. Puff Fu Jianlun spit out blood from his mouth repeatedly, and Xia Changqing was anxious for him, wondering what he was holding on to. Master Wu Hu couldn't stand it anymore, and he quickly stood up, and stood between Xia Changqing and Fu Jianlun. The heroes could all see that Fu Jianlun's defeat was a foregone conclusion, and he was the only one who was still gritting his teeth and holding on. If he didn't stop it, what would happen if Xia Changqing beat him to death? Xia Changqing, stop it. Master Wu Hu chanted a Buddhist name. I declare that the champion of this youth hero conference is Xia Changqing. Do you have any objections? Although Master Wu Hu was seeking the opinions of others, seeing that Fu Jianlun couldn't even stand steadily, if no one was mentally ill, no one would stand up and say that Fu Jianlun could fight again. Cheers rang out. Even if Fu Jianlun was unwilling in his heart, he knew that the result could not be changed. After all, he was still one step away from the champion. Xia Changqing also smiled. Although the process had some twists and turns, the result was always good. Gu Yuxuan and others had already rushed to the ring, and rushed towards Xia Changqing. Master Wu Hu looked at this scene with a smile. Logically speaking, after the competition, it should be time for Xia Changqing to choose the prize for the champion. However, Wu Hu was also a reasonable person. As Xia Changqing's fellow apprentices, Gu Yuxian and others were happy for him, which was reasonable. In addition to Gu Yuxian and others, there were many people Xia Changqing knew and didn't know, all of whom came up to him, and congratulations and flattery poured in. Of course, the same was true for Fu Jianhan. Although he lost to Xia Changqing, he also fully demonstrated the power of his overlord swordsmanship. Moreover, Fu Jianhan realized the magic skill by himself, which made him more mysterious. More importantly, Xia Changqing was already labeled as a member of Xiaoyao Valley, and it was impossible for him to betray his master and switch to another sect. But Fu Jianhan was alone. If he wanted to learn from a master, no sect would be able to refuse. People from all the major sects were not fools. People like Fu Jianhan would certainly be tried their best to win him over, and as many benefits as possible would be given. Therefore, the actual situation was that the number of people who came to Xia Changqing to congratulate him was less than half of the number of people around Fu Jianhan. The world of martial arts is so realistic. Xia Changqing clasped his fists and thanked the person who complimented him. As the saying goes, you should not hit a smiling person. Besides, the person came to congratulate him. Even if he was unhappy, he had to save face. Then Xia Changqing found an excuse to collect the reward and quickly got away. Master Wuhu, what are the rewards for this champion? Xia Changqing asked impatiently. Xia Shaoxia, please follow me to the Great Hall. Shaolin Temple has prepared the rewards for the champion. The host brother will hand them to you in person. Master Wuhu explained lightly, but this matter is not suitable to be carried out in public. I hope you can forgive me, Xia Shaoxia. The rewards given by Shaolin Temple are all magical treasures. It is better for you to know this matter alone. Master, you don't need to explain, I understand. Xia Changqing nodded in understanding. He didn't dare to take out the magical secrets to verify the integrity of the people present. Chapter 262 King Ying. In the Shaolin Temple, Xia Changqing frowned slightly. In front of him, the prizes for the champions of the Youth Hero Conference were placed in front of him. Choosing 1 out of 6, this seems to be a very difficult thing. Xia Changqing didn't know what the prizes were in the past. From his current point of view, the prizes provided by the Shaolin Temple are indeed more comprehensive. Sun and Moon Magic Art, a palm technique. After learning it, its power is not inferior to the Xiaoyao palm technique. Golden Silkworm Treasure Clothes, a treasure about defense, can effectively resist some attacks. Xia Changqing personally experimented on it, and the blade passed through it without leaving any marks on it. A sword named King Ying has the ability to cut hair. I just don't know if the King Ying sword can pierce the Golden Silkworm Treasure Clothes. Xia Changqing thought a little strangely. But the abbot of Shaolin Temple, Master Wu Yin, was watching him, so Xia Changqing had no chance to do it. Moving his eyes downward, the next thing is a bottle of pills, specially made for Shaolin. 1 pill can increase one's strength by 2 years, and there are 5 pills in the bottle, which is enough to support the strength of 10 years of hard training. Even in Shaolin, not many of these pills are made. Of course, medicine is 3/4 poisonous. Master Wu Yin clearly told Xia Changqing that the internal strength obtained by relying on pills is not as pure as the internal strength obtained by one's own practice, and he did not recommend Xia Changqing to choose this option. After looking at the pills, there is a body movement, the dragon movement. After practicing it, the body is like a swimming dragon, with the head and tail visible. After the body movement, there is a long iron stick. Xia Changqing just took a look and lost interest. It is said to be 6 items, but in fact, except for the pills made by Shaolin itself, none of them are unique to Shaolin. The big monk looks kind, but in fact he is more cunning than anyone else. Xia Changqing looked at these choices and fell into deep thought. Although he wanted to have them all, he couldn't beat the old monk Wu Yin, and there was no way he could snatch these things from Shaolin Temple. Besides, it was not worth his risk to snatch these things. Xia Changqing began to reflect on what he had learned. His martial arts were all from the Xiaoyao series. His swordsmanship was the Xiaoyao swordsmanship, which won by being erratic. His internal strength was the Xiaoyao mind method, which was not as good as the Shaolin Yijinjing, but was much stronger than other internal strengths that didn't even have a name. His hand skills included the Xiaoyao palm method, the Xiaoyao leg method, and the Xiaoyao body method. In general, the Xiaoyao series of martial arts already included a very comprehensive range. In addition, Xia Changqing had just realized a little of the true meaning of Xiaoyao, so he was not very eager for other martial arts. His eyes scanned all the items in front of him twice, and finally fixed on the Qingying sword. Whether it was the battle with Zhu and Mingzi or the just concluded ring match, Xia Changqing had always been annoyed that he didn't have a good weapon. Now that there was a precious sword in front of him, Xia Changqing had no reason to give up. After making up his mind, Xia Changqing raised his head and said, "Master Wu Yin, I choose this Qingying sword. Xia Changqing, you can choose it yourself. After you decide, you can go down the mountain." Wu Yin looked like he was sending the guests away behind closed doors, which made Xia Changqing secretly curl his lips. He reached out and picked up the Qingying sword and pulled it out. Without any sound, the Qingying sword was completely pulled out. The cold sword body clearly reflected Xia Changqing's appearance. Dancing with the Qingying, it seems like he is not in the human world. What a good sword. Xia Changqing couldn't let go of the Qingying sword and hung it around his waist. He bowed to Master Wu Yin and said goodbye and left. At the foot of Shaolin Mountain, in the courtyard, most of the people who came to participate in the Youth Hero Conference had already dispersed, and Gu Yuxuan and others were still waiting for Xia Changqing's return. The sword on his waist made others see the difference at a glance. "Changqing, you didn't choose this sword as the prize for the first prize?" Gu Yuxuan asked in surprise. The others also looked Xia Changqing up and down and confirmed that there was nothing different about him except the extra sword on his waist. This surprised Guan Wei and others, and they all stared at Xia Changqing, waiting for his explanation. Xia Changqing said nothing, but drew out the Qingying from his waist. In silence, Gu Yuxuan and others only felt a flash before their eyes, and a clear sword appeared in front of them. "Good sword," Gu Yuxuan blurted out. His eyesight was not bad, and he could see that this sword was indeed a good sword. The slightly green sword body could clearly reflect everything around it. On the sword guard, the two ancient seal characters Qingying were engraved. But although this was a good sword, it was a little different from the prize for the first prize that Gu Yuxuan expected. "Only one sword?" Gu Yuxuan asked unwillingly. Xia Changqing explained to everyone calmly, "There are 6 items in total, including skills, weapons, and elixirs." Elixirs? After hearing this word, Shen Xiangan instantly became excited. "Brother Xia, what kind of elixir is it?" Xia Changqing looked at Shen Xiangan. He knew that this girl had an unusual obsession with elixirs. He did not mean to hide it and said directly, "I did not choose any elixir that can increase my power." "Ah. Brother Xia, why don't you choose elixir?" Shen Xiangan said with some disappointment. "Even if you don't want to take it yourself, you can lend it to me for a search. Maybe I can also refine such elixir for everyone to take." This girl was kind, but Gu Yuxuan waved his hand and said disapprovingly, "Medicine is 3-point poison. The power gained by taking elixirs is basically an embroidered pillow and has no use." Shen Xiangan stared at Gu Yuxuan angrily, wanting to refute his words, but Gu Yuxuan did not give her the opportunity. He asked again, "What martial arts are there? Do you have the 72 Shaolin unique skills?" Speaking of the 72 Shaolin unique skills, not only Gu Yuxuan, but also Guan Wei and Anfang Weiming's eyes became eager. It is rumored in the martial arts world that all martial arts come from Shaolin. Of course, there is a lot of water in this, but the status of Shaolin Temple in the martial arts world can be seen. The 72 unique skills of Shaolin are well known in the martial arts world. Although the martial arts of Xiaoyao Valley may not be much worse than the 72 unique skills of Shaolin, this does not hinder the enthusiasm of Gu Yuxuan and others. Xia Changqing shook his head speechlessly and poured cold water on them. "What are you thinking about? Even if Shaolin is rich, it is impossible to take out the 72 unique skills as a reward. Let me tell you, there is a palm method and a body method in martial arts, which are not stronger than the martial arts of our Xiaoyao Valley." Chapter 263 Return. Xia Changqing dispelled everyone's unrealistic fantasies. "I have already chosen the Qingying sword. Even if I want to regret it, the Shaolin Temple will definitely not change it for me. Just give up on this idea. Ignoring the disappointed expressions of Gu Yuxuan and others, Xia Changqing continued, now that the Youth Hero Conference is over, should we set off to return to Xiaoyao Valley now, or stay here for a while? This is what needs to be decided now. After all, choosing the reward is Xia Changqing's private matter, and the matter cannot be changed. Even if they are disappointed, it is useless. Let's go back now. I have been out for such a long time, and I miss my father a little bit. At this time, Shen Xiangan spoke up. She is a girl, and since she has already spoken, even if Guan Wei still wants to stay here for a while and have a good time, he must take care of Shen Xiangan's mood. Okay, then let's pack up and set off for Xiaoyao Valley now. As the eldest brother, Gu Yuxuan saw that Shen Xiangan was eager to go home and decided immediately. Since Gu Yuxuan had already made the decision, and Xia Changqing nodded beside him, Guan Wei had no chance to object. Several people immediately went back to their rooms to pack their luggage and return to Xiaoyao Valley. Xia Changqing suddenly thought of Keely and her daughter. Although he had hurt Keely a little badly, they all had to return to Luang City, so Xia Changqing wanted to find Keely and her daughter and keep them company. After all, it had not been long since the Xianlang cult ambushed their major sects. Although Shaolin Temple had united with the heads of the major sects to wipe out the Xianlang cult, no one could guarantee that the Xianlang cult would not be so desperate as to block them on their way back. However, when Xia Changqing came to the other courtyard, where Keely and her daughter were, it had already been deserted. Xia Changqing found a person who was in the courtyard and asked him about the whereabouts of Keely and her daughter. The man was a disciple of a small sect. When he saw Xia Changqing at this time, he looked completely happy to see his idol. However, the news he brought was not very good. Through his story, Xia Changqing learned that Keely and her daughter had left the courtyard as early as last night, saying that they were going home. In this regard, the young man was still very confused. The candidate for the champion had not yet been decided, and the most exciting battle had not yet begun, but the other party was actually leaving. He was really sick in the brain. Xia Changqing smiled far-fetchedly and found an excuse to get rid of the unusually enthusiastic young man. He smiled bitterly in his heart, thinking that it was good, since Keely didn't want to see him, then let it be. After a long time, Keely would sooner or later forget him. After returning to the courtyard, where his family was, Xia Changqing's depressed mood recovered. He put all these troubles behind his mind and didn't let Gu Yuxuan and others see any abnormalities. However, Shen Xiangan asked Xia Changqing vigilantly what he was doing. After coming to Shaolin and meeting Keely, Shen Xiangan had a sense of crisis in her heart. Fortunately, according to her observation, there was not much intersection between Xia Changqing and Keely during this period, so she was relieved. Shen Xiangan knew very well what Xia Changqing was doing when he was about to leave. She was a smart girl. She could have asked nothing when Xia Changqing came back alone, but Shen Xiangan asked anyway. She did not hide her jealousy at all. She wanted to tell Xia Changqing very clearly that she was not happy at all about him going to find Keely. Xia Changqing looked at Shen Xiangan with a headache, thinking about how to stay away from each other and let the relationship between them cool down. To be honest, Shen Xiangan was in her youth and very beautiful. It would be a lie to say that she was not moved. But Xia Changqing knew his own business. He could leave this world at any time. He could not give Shen Xiangan a future. There was no need to delay the girl's life for a moment of pleasure. Even if Xia Changqing agreed to be with Shen Xiangan now, the happier and happier she was now, the more she would hate Xia Changqing in the future. Xia Changqing did not express his attitude clearly, which made Shen Xiangan look a little sad. She didn't know what she did wrong, so that Xia Changqing still didn't accept him. In a slightly dull atmosphere, the group set off to leave Shaolin Temple. 2 days later, Xia Changqing and his group had already left the scope of Shaolin Temple. Xia Shaoxia and all the young men, I will send you here to help you have a smooth journey. Master Wu Hu brought some monks from Shaolin Temple and stood in front of Xia Changqing and said to him, Master Wu Hu, I'm sorry to bother you these 2 days. I think the Xianlang sect must have heard the news and fled. Let's be careful on the road ahead and nothing will happen. Xia Changqing said gratefully. The reason why Master Wu Hu was here was, on the one hand, because this direction was the direction he was responsible for, and he had to ensure that there were no people from the Xianlang sect within the jurisdiction of Shaolin Temple. On the other hand, Xia Changqing was the champion of the Youth Hero Conference after all, and he received the reward for the champion. Although people from other sects didn't know what benefits he had received. However, it is inevitable that there will be people who are blinded by greed and will do things like intercepting and killing on the way. So Master Wu Hu also escorted Xia Changqing and others for a while. It's just that, even if you send someone 1,000 miles away, there will be a farewell. Wu Hu is not the nanny of the disciples of Xiao Valley. Even the head of Wuxiazi is not worried, so he naturally has no time to escort them all the way. Being able to send them here is already the most righteous. Xia Changqing and Gu Yuxuan and others are not dissatisfied with this, but very grateful. Master Wu Hu did this out of affection. Even if he didn't do this, they had no reason to blame him. After bidding farewell to Master Wu Hu, Xia Changqing and others really set off alone this time. As for what Master Wu Hu is worried about, no one dares to be sure that it is impossible to happen. People whose minds are confused by interests will not consider which sect you are from, or whether your martial arts are higher than theirs. They will not consider these things. The only thing they have to consider is what kind of benefits Xia Changqing got from Shaolin Temple. Thinking of this, Xia Changqing felt a little emotional. Instead of hiding it, Shaolin Temple should be open and honest, and put the prize directly on the table. Xia Changqing's choice of the Qingying sword was enough to make many people give up their improper thoughts. Now, the more mysterious it is, the more attention it attracts. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 264, The Visitor. After saying goodbye to Master Wu Hu, Xia Changqing did not expect that they would be attacked in just half a day. However, unlike what Xia Changqing imagined, this group of people were just insignificant minions. Although they had strong ambitions, they did not have the strength to match their ambitions. Only Guan Wei and Dongfang Weiming took action and easily solved this group of greedy people. They paid a price that they could not bear for their ambitions. In fact, whether it was Xia Changqing or Gu Yuxuan and others, they could not understand that these people knew that they were disciples of Xiao Valley, and even Xia Changqing won the first place. Where did they get the confidence to think that they could win the first place reward from them? After dealing with this group of people, I don't know if it was because of an illusion. Xia Changqing could feel that the militia size around him instantly decreased a lot. Several people continued on their way. Xia Changqing and Gu Yuxuan didn't care about the militia size around them. Xiao Valley is a top sect in the Central Plains martial arts world, and these disciples naturally cannot be inferior to the reputation of Xiao Valley. The mountain road is difficult to walk on, and it soon gets dark. The dark forest provides convenience for those with ulterior motives. In such an environment, if someone deliberately attacks, even Gu Yuxuan will have a headache. Be careful and be alert, Gu Yuxuan reminded him. He did not expect that, after leaving Shaolin Temple, the first thing he had to guard against was not the people of Xianlang sect, but the so-called righteous people in the world. Of course, these righteous people will definitely not admit this. Big brother, there is a dilapidated temple ahead. Should we go there to rest for a night? Guan Wen's sharp eyes, through the thin moonlight, saw a dilapidated temple in the darkness ahead, or it could be a dilapidated Taoist temple. In such a remote place, they would not be surprised by any dilapidated buildings. Gu Yuxuan turned his head and looked at the dark jungle around him, which seemed to be filled with infinite murderous intent. He cast his eyes on Xia Changqing and asked for his opinion. Then let's rest here tonight. It's dark and the mountain road is difficult to travel. We will continue our journey tomorrow. Xia Changqing frowned slightly. He could still feel the faint aura coming from the surroundings. Although he was not afraid of these people, he was also annoyed by the fact that these people were like moths to a flame, rushing towards him without caring about their lives. After Xia Changqing spoke, Gu Yuxuan naturally had no objection. The group came closer and found that it was indeed an abandoned Taoist temple. However, the Taoist temple was well preserved as a whole and could be regarded as a place that could shelter from the wind and cold. Squeak, the harsh sound of the Taoist temple's door opening spread far away, even scaring Dan Fang Weiming. Shen Xiangan also approached Xia Changqing with a frightened look. The Taoist temple was pitch black, but fortunately, a rare moonlight leaked out from a broken window, allowing them to barely see the appearance of the Taoist temple. The Taoist temple was completely empty, without any extra things. Fortunately, Xia Changqing and other people in the martial arts world had long been accustomed to such a life. Even Shen Xiangan was not so delicate. Junior brother Guan, junior brother Danfang, you two go around and look for dry firewood. Let's make a fire here, Gu Yuxuan said lightly. In this kind of weather, it was already midnight, and it was freezing cold. If there was no fire, even those people in the martial arts world with internal skills might not be able to endure it. Be careful, if there is anything wrong, come back immediately. Before the two of them left, Gu Yuxuan gave another order. Got it, senior brother. Guan Wei agreed without hesitation. He was so smart that he would definitely run back to hug his thighs as soon as there was any disturbance around. The two people went through a smooth process of looking for firewood and did not encounter any attacks. However, this did not make Gu Yuxuan feel relieved. Instead, he became more worried. The group of people who were staring at them seemed to be very patient, and it was often the patient hunters who could catch rich prey. The firewood was piled in the open space of the Taoist temple, and then Gu Yuxuan and the other two looked at Xia Changqing eagerly. Brother, I have to trouble you to light a fire, Dan Fang Weiming said with a chuckle. Naturally, it was because Xia Changqing's flaming sword martial arts at the Youth Hero Conference made Gu Yuxuan and the other two remember it in their hearts. After seeing the performance of the three people, Shen Xiangan also thought of this matter immediately, and she immediately looked at Xia Changqing with expectation. Because of being stared at, the tense atmosphere that had always existed was also eased a little. Xia Changqing shook his head and laughed, but he did not disappoint the four people. He stretched out his sword finger, and flame suddenly appeared on his finger. It did not cause any damage to his finger, but quickly ignited the fire in front of him. After watching closely, such an amazing scene made Gu Yuxuan and the other two people's eyes light up, and they all showed interested eyes, and even Shen Xiangan couldn't help but exclaimed. But she immediately remembered the environment they were in at the moment, and immediately covered her mouth, holding back the louder exclamation. However, Xia Changqing did not appreciate Shen Xiangan's little expression, but frowned slightly, and cast his eyes in the direction of the Taoist temple gate. Good martial arts. At this moment, a clear voice suddenly appeared outside the Taoist temple, and there was only one door away from them. Before this, Gu Yuxuan and others didn't notice it at all. After being startled by this sudden voice, Gu Yuxuan and others immediately looked in the direction of the Taoist temple gate with a vigilant look. They couldn't confirm whether the person coming was an enemy or a friend. But after Xia Changqing paused for a moment, he said loudly, "Who is the friend outside? It's freezing outside. If you don't mind, please come in and have a chat." Changqing? Gu Yuxuan immediately looked at Xia Changqing with worry. He didn't know who the visitor was. He invited him in rashly. Isn't this inviting a wolf into the house? Xia Changqing held his sword across his knees and gave Gu Yuxuan a reassuring look. He had some guesses about the identity of the visitor. Even if the visitor was not a friend, he could not be their enemy. Since the other party was able to come to the door of the Taoist temple quietly and silently, Xia Changqing only vaguely sensed his presence before he spoke. This person must be a person with great martial arts skills. Chapter 265, Demigods and Semi-Devils. Such a martial arts master could never have the same goal as those malicious people in the dark forest. The other party would not be interested in the reward for being the leader. If the other party was an enemy, he would have come to them at this time, and they had not noticed it before. If the other party wanted to harm them, then their chances of resisting would be very slim. In such a situation, it would be better to act calm and confident, at least to make the other party make a wrong judgment. After Xia Changqing took the initiative to invite, the man outside the door also laughed softly. In this case, I would rather obey your order. As the man's voice sounded, the door of the Taoist temple was gently pushed open from the outside. Gu Yuxuan and others looked more nervous, staring at the door, as if facing a great enemy. As the door of the Taoist temple was slowly opened, the figure of the person outside the door was completely revealed. No, the person coming was not one person, but two people. There was actually a woman standing next to the man who spoke. Before her figure was completely revealed, Gu Yuxuan and others did not even sense her presence. Even Xia Changqing showed a slight shock on his face. Such a living person was only 5 steps away from him, but he didn't even sense it. Xia Changqing, who was somewhat complacent in his heart because he had comprehended a little of the true meaning of Xiao, felt as if someone had poured a basin of cold water on his head. The world is so big, there are many hidden dragons and crouching tigers. The little achievement he has made now is really insignificant. What is there to be complacent about? At this moment, Xia Changqing couldn't help asking himself in his heart. His somewhat anxious heart slowly calmed down because of this realization and became calm again. 2 friends, please come in, Xia Changqing said without any change in his tone. However, the expressions of Gu Yuxuan and others were stunned for a moment. It was really because the man who pushed the door in was very beautiful. It didn't seem appropriate to put the word beautiful on a man. Just looking at the person who came, Gu Yuxuan and others only had this word in their hearts. Even though they were both men, they were amazed by the appearance of the person who came. The other person had long flowing hair, dressed in white, with a folding fan on his waist. His brows were slightly furrowed, and his expression was a little melancholy, which made people feel distressed. The peerless handsome man is talking about the man in front of him. With Xia Changqing's temperament, he couldn't help but secretly marvel in his heart that there are such men in the world. The man on the street is like jade, and the gentleman is unparalleled in the world. At this moment, Xia Changqing couldn't help but feel jealous. Resisting the temptation, Xia Changqing cast his eyes on the woman next to the man. His eyes lit up again. The woman just stood there, and there was a feeling of gentleness and elegance. Her appearance was even better than Shen Xiangan. When she stood with the man, people couldn't help but think that they were a perfect match. Xia Changqing opened his mouth and wanted to invite the two to sit down and talk, but he actually felt that asking the two to sit on the spot in such an abandoned Taoist temple was an insult to them. The newcomer didn't treat himself as an outsider. The man ignored the shocked looks of Gu Yuxuan and others, as if he was used to the reactions of outsiders, and sat down naturally with his legs crossed. After seeing the man's actions, the woman also sat down beside him. After sitting down, neither of them spoke, but the man looked up and down at Xia Changqing with interest. Just when Xia Changqing felt uncomfortable, he heard the man slowly say, Xiaoji is really young and promising. Congratulations on winning the championship of this year's Youth Hero Conference. Xia Changqing felt strange. We didn't know each other. How could you congratulate me? And what's the matter with your nostalgic expression? At this time, Gu Yuxuan seemed to have finally recovered from the shock. A trace of realization flashed across his face, and his eyes stared at the man tightly. If I'm not mistaken, you are Kinara from Xianlong Babu, right? Although Gu Yuxuan was questioning, his tone was full of certainty. Kinara was exposed, but he didn't look embarrassed at all. He looked at Gu Yuxuan without surprise. Young Master Gu, you have good eyesight. Did your friend named Zhu tell you this? Kinara said softly, but he revealed the source of Gu Yuxuan's information. Gu Yuxuan didn't answer him, but looked at Kinara with full vigilance. You are a member of the Xianlong sect. What is your purpose in coming here? Gu Yuxuan was afraid that his previous hint would not make Xia Changqing realize that the other party was a member of the Xianlong sect, so he directly exposed the other party's identity. A member of the Xianlong sect? Shen Xiangan exclaimed, and couldn't help but exclaimed. She didn't expect that such a beautiful man was actually a member of the evil cult of the Xianlong sect. She had a thought in her heart that she was a beautiful woman, but she had to follow the thief. After knowing the identity of the person opposite, Guan Wei and Dong Fang Weiming quickly recovered from the beauty of the other party, and each of them tightened their weapons in their hands, with a look of vigilance. Although the other party looks harmless and handsome now, they will not be deceived by appearance. Can there be any good people in the Xianlong sect? Looking at the alert expressions of Gu Yuxuan and others, Kinara frowned even more, and his melancholy expression became more eye-catching. He sighed softly, "You don't have to be wary of me. I have heard a little about what the Xianlang sect has done recently, but I don't agree with their approach." The look between Kinara's eyebrows became more melancholy. The order to attack the younger generation of the major sects halfway was given by the Dragon King of my sect, but it does not mean that others agree with his order. Why are you telling us this? No matter who gave the order, it was done by your Xianlang sect. Gu Yuxuan interrupted Kinara's words, and the alertness on his face did not show any sign of dissipating. Yes, this was indeed done by the Xianlang sect. A trace of pain flashed across Kinara's melancholy expression. This made Xia Changqing, who noticed this, feel a little strange in his heart. The other party seemed to be in pain because of the order given by the Dragon King. But why? Wasn't the other party also a member of the Xianlang sect? Xia Changqing was very clear about some things in this world, but only half understood some things. He knew about Xiao Valley and Dongfang Weiming. Obviously, the Xianlang sect's affairs were within the scope of Xia Changqing's ignorance. Chapter 266 Uninvited Guests. It was a dark and windy night. In the ruined temple, there was a bonfire and 5 or 6 people were sitting opposite each other. Kinara was dressed in white. Even though he was sitting in the ruined temple, he looked like a fallen immortal. His slightly frowned melancholy temperament not only did not destroy his demeanor, but also made him more charming. Your Excellency still hasn't said what your purpose is here? If you want to be an enemy of us, then there is no need to waste your words. Let's see who is right with our hands. After a brief silence, Gu Yuxuan clenched his fists and said in a low voice. Crackling, the slight explosion of the burning firewood seemed to add a bit of solemnity to the atmosphere in the ruined temple. However, Kinara sat where he was, without any intention of taking action. Young Master Gu, please be patient. I have no intention of making an enemy of your brothers. Some time ago, the people who attacked you were also from my Xianlang sect, but they were all subordinates of the Dragon King, and I'm a subordinate of the Heavenly King. Dragon King? Heavenly King? The brothers looked at each other. From Kinara's words, they could hear that things in the Xianlang sect seemed a little complicated. Yes, the Dragon King is ambitious, and has always wanted to dominate the Central Plains martial arts world. He has never disappeared. When the Heavenly King was still there, he was able to suppress the Dragon King and make him curb his ambition. Since the Heavenly King disappeared, the Dragon King's actions have become more and more unscrupulous. Kinara explained lightly. This should be an internal secret of the Xianlang sect. Xia Changqing didn't know why he told them this secret. Since he had doubts in his heart, Xia Changqing naturally asked, "Why did you tell us the secrets of your sect?" Kinara smiled bitterly. "Of course I want to tell you, young heroes. Although we are all members of the Xianlang sect, we are different from those people. I don't want you to misunderstand me." Gu Yuxuan's eyes flashed with doubt, and he asked puzzledly, "Are you here to apologize for your sect's Zuan Mingzi?" "No." Kinara suddenly smiled, and the whole broken temple was shining. "I just want to see what kind of talent the leader of this youth hero conference is. Oh. Now that you have seen him, what's next? Then I hope to make friends with you." Kinara stated his purpose. Xia Changqing and Gu Yuxuan looked at each other, and both of them revealed a strange look in their eyes. They were disciples of Xiao Valley, and the other party was one of the Xianlang Babu. There was no need for the two sides to be friends. Everyone knows about my Xianlang sect. The Dragon King is ambitious and wants to dominate the Central Plains martial arts world. A bloody storm is inevitable. Kinara explained calmly. Everyone in the Central Plains martial arts world thinks that the Heavenly King of my sect is an incarnation of evil and a great devil in the martial arts world. However, this is all a misunderstanding of the Heavenly King by the Central Plains martial arts world. The Heavenly King has no ambitions. However, 10 years ago, the major sects in the Central Plains besieged the Heavenly King and made him disappear. Some people say that he has been killed by masters from the major sects in the Central Plains martial arts world, but I don't believe it. The Heavenly King must still be alive, and I have found out that he may be trapped in the Shaolin Temple. Why are you telling us this? Are you expecting us brothers to help you rescue the Heavenly King from the Shaolin Temple? Gu Yuxuan interrupted Kinara and said, "Why not?" Kinara smiled and did not deny his purpose. Gu Yuxuan frowned. "This is simply impossible. Even if the Heavenly King is trapped in Shaolin Temple now, why should we help you do this?" Gu Yuxuan is not a pedantic person, so he did not say anything like the Heavenly King is a big devil that everyone wants to fight, but went straight to the core of the problem. They are disciples of Xiaoyao Valley, people of the right path. Why should they help you, a member of a cult? I don't force you young heroes to help me rescue the Heavenly King. I still say that I came here tonight just to make friends with you. Your Excellency is one of the 8 immortals, and we brothers dare not approach you. Gu Yuxuan refused lightly. Even if he was not a moralist, it was still unknown whether Kinara's words were true or false. How could the two sides become friends in just a few words? And Gu Yuxuan was an upright gentleman. He disdained to lie, so he would not deceive the other party with words. For those who like him, no matter what their status is, everyone can sit down and have a drink together. But for those who have different beliefs, it is better not to make plans with each other. Kinara smiled melancholy, and just as he was about to speak, his expression suddenly changed, and he shouted softly, "Who is sneaking around?" Although it was just a light shout, Kinara also directly used the sound wave attack like the lion's roar kung fu, and the sound gathered into a beam and rushed straight to the people outside the temple. Xia Changqing and Gu Yuxuan couldn't help but look at each other. Among the brothers present, they were the two with the highest martial arts skills, and only they could hear the profound power of Kinara's light shout. Ha ha ha. The expected sound of being injured did not sound, but a laugh like a night owl sounded. This harsh sound came from left to right, as if it was all over the Taoist temple, making it difficult to judge where this person was. Shen Xiangyan had the lowest martial arts skills. She couldn't withstand the attack of the sound wave, and immediately cried out in pain, and couldn't help but hold her head. Seeing this, Xia Changqing quickly held Shen Xiangyan's hand, and transferred his inner strength to Shen Xiangyan's body, relieving her of the harsh sound wave attack. "Who is this villain, hiding your head and showing your tail?" Xia Changqing opened his mouth and shouted, offsetting the opponent's sound wave attack. "Oh. Xia Changqing is worthy of being the champion of this youth hero conference, and his martial arts are really amazing." Xia Changqing's eyes flashed, and he had already caught the opponent's location. At this moment, Kinara suddenly waved his sleeves, and the door of the Taoist temple creaked open. Outside the door stood a thin black shadow, and in the distance, there were shadowy black shadows. "Lord Luosh, since you are here, please come in and have a chat," Kinara said loudly. Hearing this, Xia Changqing's eyes flashed, and from Kinara's words, he could hear that he knew the other party, and the visitor was likely to be a member of the Xian Lang sect. "What's going on tonight? All kinds of people are coming. Is he, the leader of the Young Heroes Conference, so respected?" Xia Changqing couldn't help but think secretly. Of course, at such a serious moment, no one would have thought that Xia Changqing would have such a frivolous idea. While Xia Changqing was thinking about it, someone outside the temple had stepped in. An old man with a sinister face scanned the temple with a fierce look. Chapter 267 Mahorika. "Ah!" Shen Xiangyan suddenly screamed, and she pointed in the direction of the person with one hand in fear. Xia Changqing could feel Shen Xiangyan holding his hand, and tightened it a little. He followed Shen Xiangyan's gaze, and saw that there was a small black snake hanging on the neck of the person. The snake was as thick as a thumb, with an inverted triangle head, and it was obviously poisonous. As if disturbed by Shen Xiangyan's scream, the black snake raised its head and spit out its head towards Shen Xiangyan. "Lord Luoshi, you are a senior in the martial arts world after all. Why do you have to scare these young people?" Kinara said. The old man called Luoshi and smiled grimly, ignoring Xia Changqing and others, and looked at Kinara. "Kinara, I didn't expect that I could see you here. Oh, by the way, Ngandhava, long time no see." The woman who had been sitting quietly beside Kinara since entering the Taoist temple finally raised her head and looked at the visitor, saying in a gentle voice, "This little girl greets Luoshi." From the greetings of several people, Gu Yuxuan had guessed the identity of the visitor. He did not pretend to hide it, but directly said in a low voice, "Mahorika of the 8 Immortals." Although it was just a name, it seemed that a bloody storm was coming towards Xia Changqing and others. Guan Wei might not have heard of the names of Kinara and Gandharva because they were too low-key. Mahoraga, a figure who had been active in the Central Plains martial arts world, was known for his viciousness and cruelty. Even Guan Wei had heard of his reputation. Mahoraga smiled grimly again. Little kid, you have good eyesight. You actually know me. If that's the case, I'll leave you a whole body. This attitude of not taking Gu Yuxuan and others seriously made them feel angry. Even though Mahoraga was an old senior who had been in the martial arts world for a long time, it would not be easy for him to kill them easily. But before Gu Yuxuan could retort, Kinara stood up calmly. Lord Luosh, these are my new friends. With me here, it seems that you can't get what you want tonight. Although Kinara's words did not have much emotional ups and downs, no one could ignore the weight of his words, even Mahoraga. As one of the 8 immortals, although Mahoraga is one generation higher than Kinara in terms of martial arts, it is not the older one who is the master. However, it is impossible to say that Mahoraga was frightened and retreated because of Kinara's words. After all, he was a member of the older generation of the Cheyenne Long Babu. If he retreated because of a word from Kinara, would he still be able to walk the rivers and lakes in the future? How could he still have the face to stay in the Cheyenne Long sect? Kinara, it was the Dragon King who ordered you to bring this champion back to the Cheyenne Long sect. Do you want to disobey the Dragon King and betray the Cheyenne Long sect? Mahoraka's face darkened, and he directly put a high hat on Kinara. Kinara, retreat quickly. I will pretend that I have not seen you today. Otherwise, I believe you are also familiar with the rules of our Cheyenne Long sect. Mahoraga shouted in a hurry, looking at Kinara with a gloomy look. In fact, although Kinara and he belonged to the Cheyenne Long sect, Mahoraga knew very well that Kinara and the Dragon King were not of the same mind. So if he was not afraid of Kinara and Gandharva joining forces, he would have taught this junior a lesson long ago. However, Kinara's expression did not change, as if he did not hear Mahoraka's threat. Lord Luosh, I've already said that with me here today, you won't get what you want. Humph, it seems like you really want to betray my Cheyenne Long sect. Mahoraga said angrily. Kinara frowned slightly, his expression became even more melancholy. He whispered, I only recognize the Cheyenne Long sect where the Heavenly King is. After hearing this, Mahoraka's face immediately turned ugly. Before he could say anything, he heard Kinara continue. Lord Luosh, you have been traveling around the Central Plains martial arts world, and you know very well in your heart how different the situation of our Cheyenne Long sect has been since the disappearance of the Heavenly King. This is all due to the ambition of the Dragon King. Lord Luosh, come and help me. Let's welcome back the Heavenly King and revive the Cheyenne Long sect. How outrageous. Mahoraga was furious. This is really treasonous. The Heavenly King was killed by the Central Plains martial arts world, and now the Dragon King has inherited his will, and everything he has done is to avenge the Heavenly King. You don't want to contribute to the Cheyenne Long sect, but you have been living in fantasy. It's really ridiculous. Kinara sighed softly. He would never be able to wake up a person who pretended to be asleep. He knew that Mahoraga knew what the situation of the Heavenly King was like, but Mahoraga was a staunch supporter of the Dragon King, and naturally did not want the Heavenly King to come back and take power again. Lord Luosh, I really don't want to be your enemy. Why do we have to do this? Kinara sighed again. Perhaps he had been depressed for too long, and the sigh could not stop. Just as Kinara's sigh ended, he heard the woman called Gandharva say faintly, Lord Luosh, you are also an old senior. Why do you have to do this despicable method of secretly poisoning? After hearing this, Gu Yuxuan and others' faces changed. They did not notice when the other party poisoned them, and they did not feel that they were poisoned. Before Gu Yuxuan raised any questions, Gandharva's sleeves fluttered, and she waved her white hands, gathering a group of light green smoke in her hands. The poisonous mist continued to boil and roll, but it could not escape the range of Gandharva's palm. Kinara, Gandharva, you two are going to make things difficult for me. Gandharva chuckled. Lord Luosh, you are really getting old. When did you become so long-winded? Before he finished speaking, Gandharva slapped his bare hands forward, and the handprint composed of poisonous fog was pressed towards Mahoraga. Mahoraka did not move and waited until the handprint of poisonous fog came in front of him. Then he turned around and dodged the palm. The handprint of poisonous fog continued to move forward and disappeared into the depths of darkness in the blink of an eye. A dull scream suddenly sounded, and then it immediately fell into silence. Mahoraka smiled in a low voice, and he stopped talking. He flashed and came to Kinara's side in the blink of an eye. In an environment where only the bonfire could dimly illuminate, Mahoraka's movement was like a ghost, and at a speed that Guyuxuan and others could not detect. He moved 5 or 6 steps in an instant. Chapter 268 Master. Mahoraka flashed in front of Kinara and stretched out a palm. Although he was old, Mahoraka's palm was still white and tender, like a baby's. Facing such a palm that seemed to have no power, Kinara showed a rather nervous look. His robes fluttered without wind, and then he slowly stretched out a palm and pressed it against Mahoraka's. When the two palms were pressed together, the explosion finally occurred. The invisible energy, with the two people fighting as the center, rushed out violently in all directions. Xia Changqing and Guyuxuan looked at each other, and they stood in front of the others at the same time, mobilizing their internal strength to block the impact. The bonfire in the Taoist temple was scattered by the impact, and the originally bright environment became a little dark. At this moment, Kinara and Mahoraka collided countless times in an instant. Xia Changqing and the others could only hear dull bangs, but it was difficult to see the fight between Kinara and Mahoraka. Xia Changqing's eyes lit up. He was finally lucky enough to see the duel between the most powerful masters in the world. Although Xia could rank 4th among the martial arts masters, Xia Changqing often practiced with him. However, as Xia's apprentice, Xia Changqing had more teaching element. If Xia wanted to attack with all his strength, Xia Changqing could not resist it at all. If there is a division of martial arts in the world, Xia and the King of Heaven, the Dragon King, and the Shaolin host Wuan are undoubtedly in the first echelon, the legendary Master Realm. Below the Master, it should be the position of the 8 immortals such as Kinara and Mahoraka, who opened up the Ren and Du meridians and entered the innate realm. Xia Changqing, at most, is only at the realm of a first-class master. Of course, there is no specific realm division in this world, and all rankings are the reputations that each master has earned through hard work. However, it is an indisputable fact that Kinara and Mahoraka are one level higher than Xia Changqing's martial arts. Unlike what Xia Changqing expected, the battle between Kinara and Mahoraka was not earth-shattering, but gentle as water. Although the two were constantly fighting, they controlled their true energy around their bodies and did not affect reality. Only true masters have such a delicate control ability. Except for the huge impact of the palm that the two people collided at the beginning, the rest of the time, the two people kept moving in the Taoist temple and fighting silently. Guyuxuan and others were full of tension on their faces. This kind of fight between top masters was not something they could participate in. No one expected that, after dealing with Zhu and Mingzi, Mahoraka, one of the 8 immortals, would come to chase them in person. Thinking of this, Xia Changqing suddenly had a funny idea in his mind. From this point of view, Zhu and Mingzi's martial arts skills were not much better than his, and he was even more incomparable with people like Kinara and Mahoraka. Zhu and Mingzi, who betrayed Xiaoyao Valley, had the ambition to dominate the martial arts world, but he did not have the corresponding strength. It was really a disgrace to Xiaoyao Valley. Throwing away all distracting thoughts, Xia Changqing turned his attention to the battle on the scene. Kinara and Mahoraka's palms met, and the collision of internal forces was the most dangerous, and outsiders could not see it at all. But suddenly, the black snake that had been coiled around Mahoraka's neck spit out its core and bit Kinara like lightning. Kinara's expression did not change. He had already expected Mahoraka to have this trick. Mahoraka has always been famous for using poison among the Cheyenne Lang Babu. He is not only good at using poison, but also raising poisonous creatures. This black snake, which is only the thickness of a thumb, is raised by raising poison. The toxicity is so strong that anyone bitten will die. Kinara stretched out 2 fingers mysteriously, and before the black snake bit him, he clamped the black snake's 7 inches with the index and middle fingers of his right hand. The black snake made a terrifying hissing sound, but Kinara's expression did not change at all. Mahoraka, however, saw the gap where one of Kinara's hands was restricted and pointed his finger like a sword and pointed at Kinara's heart like lightning. If he didn't make a move, it would be fine, but once he made a move, he would kill him. Although the two were both members of the Cheyenne Long Babu, Mahoraka had no intention of showing mercy when he could save Kinara's life. In the critical moment, Kinara's body slightly turned aside. It was impossible to completely avoid Mahoraka's finger. In the current situation, he could only try to minimize the damage. Swish, like the sound of a sharp sword piercing a human body, Mahoraka pointed a finger at Kinara's shoulder, and the force penetrated Kinara's flesh and blood like a sharp sword. A finger-sized blood hole appeared on Kinara's shoulder, but this peerless handsome man seemed not to feel it. His muscles moved and sealed the bleeding hole. He pinched his two fingers hard, and the black snake immediately wailed and fell down. Noticing that his precious snake was not sure whether it was alive or dead, Mahoraka was shocked and angry. He retracted his fingers and pointed at Kinara's wrist again, wanting to save his precious black snake. Kinara moved his body, flicked his wrist, and threw the black snake towards Mahoraka. Mahoraka retracted the strength in his hand, changed his fingers into palms, and grabbed his black snake. Kinara's white sleeves fluttered in front of Mahoraka's eyes, confusing his eyes. Although it was only a moment, for a master, this time was enough. Bang! With a barely detectable muffled sound, Mahoraka grabbed his precious snake. He immediately felt the black snake's wriggling feeling, which meant that the black snake was still alive and did not die immediately. This made Mahoraka feel relieved, but Kinara's palm was also imprinted on his body. He had been moving without stopping, and at this moment he stopped briefly. Mahoraka took 2 steps back and groaned. Although there was no external expression, his internal organs were shaken and damaged. The two fought quickly, but after only 5 or 6 breaths, everyone was injured. This is a duel between top masters. A small mistake may cause one's defeat. Although Kinara and Mahoraka are evenly matched, don't forget that there is another one of the 8 immortals among the people present. Don't look at Gandharva's delicate appearance. How can she be a person of the 8 immortals just by appearance? Chapter 269. Both sides suffer. Even if Mahoraka did not take Xia Changqing and others seriously, he could not ignore the existence of Gandharva. Just as Mahoraka was retreating, Gandharva, who was watching the battle on the side, suddenly made a move. Gandharva, who was ethereal, seemed to be a fairy from the sky. Her sleeves fluttered in front of Mahoraka, and she gently brushed her hands towards Mahoraka. The immortal stroked my head, and I will receive eternal life. At this moment, Gandharva was really like a fairy from heaven, wanting to take Mahoraka to heaven. When she made a move, there was no trace of fireworks, nor any murderous aura. People once thought that Gandharva was not performing martial arts, but performing a graceful dance. Even Mahoraka couldn't help blushing, and felt like a dead tree coming back to life, and was shocked by the beauty of Gandharva. After all, Mahoraka was one of the 8 immortals. Although he was bewitched by Gandharva, he recovered with great perseverance before Gandharva's delicate hand was about to touch his head. Gandharva's attack was not full of fireworks, but it contained a huge murderous intention. Hearing thunder in silence, Mahoraka's figure retreated violently, not daring to take Gandharva's palm. Gandharva had already anticipated this situation, and her body floated forward and chased after him. One retreated, and the other advanced. No matter how good Mahoraka's body skills were, he didn't have eyes behind his head after all, and no one noticed when Xia Changqing came behind Mahoraka. Xia Changqing used the true meaning of Xia out to the limit, so he didn't attract Mahoraka's attention and successfully came behind him. That's right, Xia Changqing wanted to sneak attack Mahoraka. To be honest, facing an opponent like Mahoraka, although it was not to the point of despair, it was enough to make people feel anxious. Xia Changqing didn't think that Kinara and Gandharva wouldn't come back after forcing Mahoraka to retreat. Kinara and Gandharva couldn't have escorted them back to Xia Valley. So, instead of praying for Kinara and Gandharva to drive Mahoraka away, it was better to save himself. It was because of this idea that Xia Changqing attacked Mahoraka brazenly. Compared with the safety of himself and Guyuxuan and others, the attack from behind was not worth mentioning. However, a master is a master. although he didn't feel it when Xia Changqing came behind Mahoraga. When Xia Changqing attacked, Mahoraga still sensed the danger from behind. "Young man, you are looking for death," Mahoraga shouted angrily in his heart, and his whole body suddenly twisted strangely, from facing Xia Changqing with his back to facing him head on. Xia Changqing was startled, but he had no regrets after punching. He roared silently in his heart and punched faster. Mahoraga sneered. He could tolerate Kinura and Gandharva joining forces to deal with him, but he could not tolerate Xia Changqing, a junior from the martial arts world, attacking him from behind. So even at the risk of being hit by Gandharva, Mahoraga still turned around and hit Xia Changqing's fist with a palm. Time seemed to stop for a moment, and Xia Changqing flew backwards at a faster speed than when he came. He hit the wall of the Taoist temple heavily. At this moment, Xia Changqing felt that the Taoist temple was almost knocked down by him. At this time, he could only think so in a happy way. While after being blocked by the wall of the Taoist temple, Xia Changqing directly spit out a large mouthful of blood. Under Mahoraka's palm, he had already suffered serious internal injuries. "Brother Xia!" Shen Xiangan cried out in grief, and couldn't help running to Xia Changqing and helping him up. However, although Xia Changqing suffered serious internal injuries, he couldn't help but smile at the corner of his mouth. Because his goal has been achieved. It always takes some time for Mahoraga to turn around and deal with him, and this little effort allows Gandharva to close the distance with Mahoraga. A palm without any fireworks was printed on Mahoraka's junior, making him freeze in place. The next moment, Mahoraga flew forward and broke out of the gate of the Taoist temple, leaving only the other party's hateful voice in the air. "Junior, I will come back." Then the voice disappeared in a flash and disappeared in the dense jungle. At the moment, when Mahoraga left with injuries, the disciples of the Xianlang sect who were faintly surrounding the Taoist temple also disappeared in an instant. At this time, Xia Changqing finally put his mind at ease. With the help of Shen Xiangan, he sat cross-legged and began to regulate his internal breath. "Thank you for your help, otherwise our brothers and sisters will suffer tonight." Gu Yuxuan stood up and thanked Kinura and Gandharva. "You don't have to thank me. I've said it before, that we are not the same kind of people as the Dragon King. Dealing with Mahoraga is what we should do," Kinura said nonchalantly. He tapped his injured shoulder several times, and no blood seeped out. Giving Gandharva a reassuring look, Kinura pointed to where Xia Changqing was. Gandharva slowly walked to Xia Changqing's side. In Shen Xiangan's puzzled eyes, he took out a jade bottle from his arms and opened his red lips. "There is a detoxification pill in it. Feed him one." This was said to Shen Xiangan. Although she didn't understand, under Gandharva's calm eyes, she couldn't help but reach out and take it. After pouring out a crystal clear pill from the jade bottle, Shen Xiangan couldn't help asking, "Brother Xia has internal injuries. Why give him the detoxification pill?" Gandharva chuckled, making people blush. She said softly, "Lord Luosh is a master of poison. No one knows when he will poison. Look at his palm." At this time, Xia Changqing had opened his eyes after hearing the noise. He couldn't help but raise the palm that had just been slapped with Mahoraga in front of his eyes. The palm was blue-black. Xia Changqing was a little confused. At the moment when the palms of the two touched, he had been poisoned. Shen Xiangan screamed in fear and quickly followed Gandharva's instructions and handed the pill in her hand to Xia Changqing. Xia Changqing took the pill and looked at Gandharva deeply. To be honest, he was not at ease to take the medicine given by the other party. Although these two people acted upright, their purpose was very simple, which was to rescue the Heavenly King trapped in Shaolin Temple. So Xia Changqing was not surprised at what means these two people would use to achieve this goal. Chapter 270 Return to Xiaoyao. Brother, what do you think the two men's purpose is? Can we really help them rescue the Heavenly King? Dong Fang Weiming asked in surprise, looking at the figures of Kinura and Gandharva who had disappeared in the dense forest. In his opinion, good and evil cannot coexist. Even if the Heavenly King is really not an evil and bloodthirsty person as Kinura said, it is an indisputable fact that the other party is the Heavenly King of the Xianlang sect. Xia Changqing and Gu Yuxuan couldn't help but look at each other. Neither of them had such a strong concept of good and evil. and it is an indisputable fact that Kinara and Gandharva helped them repel the invading Mahoraka. People should be grateful and repay kindness. Whether it is Xia Changqing or Gu Yuxun, if there is a chance in the future, they will choose to repay the kindness of today to Kinara and the others. It's just that they are not considering rescuing the Heavenly King now. Let's talk about the future later. Let's leave here quickly. I don't know if the people from the Xianlang sect will come back to kill us. Gu Yuxuan did not answer Dong Fang Weiming's question directly, but immediately packed up their luggage and set out on the road back to Xiaoyao Valley. Although Xia Changqing's face was a little pale, he did not delay his journey. He was just very surprised that after dawn, when he was on the road again, he could no longer feel the sense of being watched from all around. Before Xia Changqing could wonder for too long, he quickly understood the reason. "Brother, look there." With Dong Fang Weiming's exclamation, Xia Changqing, Gu Yuxuan and others immediately cast their eyes in the direction of his finger. In the dark bushes, a palm stretched out from inside and fell to the ground weakly. It was a human palm. "Go and see what's going on. Be careful," Gu Yuxuan instructed and took Guan Wei to move forward carefully. Xia Changqing's nostrils were slightly open and he had already smelled the faint smell of blood in the air. At the same time, Guan Wei had already pulled aside the grass. After taking a look inside, he quickly turned around and said, "It's a dead man." Exposed to Xia Changqing and others was a middle-aged man who had been dead for a long time. He fell in the grass with his eyes wide open. In his eyes, there was still the fear and terror before his death. The cause of death was a knife in the throat. The time should be last night. Was it done by the people of the Xianlang sect? Guan Wei and Dong Fang Weiming said, "Brother, there are still bodies here." Just as the doubts were expressed, the sharp-eyed Dong Fang Weiming found another body slumped under a tree not far away. "Don't look. These people should be the ones who have been following us. Unfortunately, they encountered the attack of the Xianlang sect last night, and then they were killed by the people of the Xianlang sect." Although this was Xia Changqing's guess, it also attracted Gu Yuxuan's approval, and he didn't look at the bodies around him again. "Don't worry about these corpses. Let's hurry up and return to Xiaoyao Valley as soon as possible. Without Master, I feel uneasy." Gu Yuxuan looked around. In this dense jungle, there were still many dead people hiding. However, Gu Yuxuan could not say that he had sympathy for these people. Since they had such ambitions, they naturally had to have the strength to match their ambitions. Now that they were not as skilled as others, and were killed by the people of Xianlang sect, they could only blame themselves. After listening to Gu Yuxuan's instructions, Guan Wei and Dong Fang Weiming stopped looking around and helped Xia Changqing to leave quickly. After setting off, there were no peeping people around, which made Xia Changqing feel much more relaxed. It was not pleasant to be watched by others anytime and anywhere. The expected pursuers did not appear again. On this day, the group finally returned to the jurisdiction of Luoyang City. At this point, Gu Yuxuan and others were relieved, but the journey of 100 miles begins with a single step. In this last step, they could not be too relaxed. Only when they return to Xiaoyao Valley can they truly relax. "Master." At the entrance of Xiaoyao Valley, everyone smiled at the familiar scenery. No one thought that they were just going to attend the Young Heroes Conference, so how could so many ups and downs happen? Thinking back to when Gu Yuxuan took Jingzi to attend the Young Heroes Conference, not so many things happened. Swish, the eyes of several people blurred, and the figure of Wuxiazi appeared in front of them. "Haha, my good disciples, you are back. Is the journey smooth?" Wuxiazi is still Wuxiazi, not changed at all. "Master, the journey was not smooth at all. We almost couldn't come back." The other people were more introverted. After Wuxiazi appeared, they all saluted him, but Guan Wei didn't consider this. He complained loudly, fearing that Wuxiazi's old eyes were dim and his ears were deaf, and he couldn't hear or see his grievances. "What do you mean you almost couldn't come back? Didn't you all come back neatly?" Wuxiazi waved his hand with a look of disapproval. "Master, you don't know how many dangers we have encountered along the way. Before we even reached Songshan, we met Uncle Zuan Mingzi, who insisted that we join the Xianlang sect. How can I agree to that? I can only fight him for 300 rounds. Guan Wei complained loudly. "Master, don't say that you didn't receive the letter about our attack. The leaders of other sects have all gone to Shaolin, and only our disciples of Xia Valley are not loved by their grandmas or uncles. After being complained by Guan Wei, Wuxia's face was a little embarrassed, and his expression was a little embarrassed. I just want to train you, right? Now you know what the treacherous world is. Indeed, the world is too treacherous. On the way back, we also encountered Mahoraka, one of the 8 immortals. This is not training at all, but sending us to death. Mahoraka? Hearing this name, Wuxia's expression became serious for the first time. Xia Changqing, did you really encounter the Mahoraka, one of the demigods and semi-devils? Xia Changqing and Gu Yuxian looked at each other, and Gu Yuxian saluted and said, yes, master, junior brother Guan did not lie, we did encounter the Mahoraka on our way back. Wuxia frowned, his face looking a little ugly. I was negligent. After receiving the letter, I only saw your disappointing uncle chasing you, and with Changqing and Yuxian's martial arts, you two could have held your own. It's just that I didn't expect that you would actually encounter the Mahoraka. Having said this, Wuxia's face finally showed annoyance. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 271. Excited Wuxia. In Xia Valley, Xia Changqing and others, who were exhausted from the journey, were finally able to relax, take a good rest and drink some hot water. This is indeed a bit too miserable. It's just that, even if Wuxia was not at the scene, he could feel the danger. The reputation of Mahoraka from Xianlong Babu, even if Wuxia stayed in Xia Valley all year round, he still heard of his reputation. He was a dangerous person known for his cruelty and cunning. Wuxia really couldn't imagine how the few people who were targeted by Mahoraka escaped. Your encounter with Mahoraka is indeed a dereliction of duty as a teacher. I failed to foresee this danger. I just don't know how you escaped from Mahoraka. Facing Wuxia's question, Gu Yuxian's face flashed a strange look. Master, before the Mahoraka attacked, we met Kinnera and Gandharva from the Heavenly Dragons. It was these two who helped us fight off the Mahoraka. Kinnera and Gandharva? Wuxia's mind flashed with a sense of wonder. He looked at his disciples in surprise, wondering what charm these people had that attracted the attention of masters like the Heavenly Dragons. They are also from the Heavenly Dragons. Why do they help you deal with your own people? This was also what Wuxia was puzzled about. Speaking of this, Gu Yuxian felt a little happy for no reason. It turns out that there are things in this world that the master doesn't know. Master, you may not know that Kinnera and Gandharva follow the Heavenly King of the Xianlong sect, while Mahoraka follows the Dragon King. The two Kinneras want to rescue the Heavenly King from Shaolin Temple, so the reason he helps us is to make friends with Changqing, the leader of the Young Heroes Conference. I see. A flash of realization flashed across Wuxia's face. Maybe Gu Yuxian and others didn't know, but Wuxia knew that the Heavenly King was indeed detained in Shaolin Temple. Wait, he seemed to have missed some important information. Wuxia came to his senses and suddenly stared at Xia Changqing with shining eyes. Changqing, you are actually the leader of this Young Heroes Conference? Great, great. You are worthy of being my disciple, Wuxia. The leader of the Young Heroes Conference is finally my disciple of Xia Valley. Wuxia danced with joy, like a child who got candy. This is something worth celebrating. No, we have to celebrate it properly. Xiangan, go home and tell your father to ask everyone in Wangaya village to come. I will hold a banquet in Xia Valley to celebrate Changqing's victory. No problem, uncle. In Shen Xiangan's heart, she was more excited than anyone else about Xia Changqing's victory. Now Wuxia's order was just what she wanted. Before Xia Changqing refused, Shen Xiangan ran out of Xia Valley happily. Master, it seems unnecessary. Xia Changqing wanted to dispel Wuxia's idea. To be honest, in his opinion, winning the championship was not a big deal. He was even happier than him realizing the true meaning of Xiao. Just looking at Wuxia's appearance, this idea was not something Xia Changqing could dispel with just a few words. Sure enough, after listening to Xia Changqing's words of persuasion, Wuxiazi said unhappily, "Why is it not necessary? It is such a happy thing that you can win the first place. I will decide on this matter. I will invite everyone to a banquet." Wuxiazi was happy, but Xia Changqing and the others were not happy. Although Xia Changqing won the first place, it was just the matter of holding the banquet. Because there were no other servants in Xiaoyao Valley, this matter needed to be handled by their fellow apprentices. Wuxiazi was happy, but their fellow apprentices were the ones who worked hard. Xia Changqing and the others had just returned, and they didn't even have much rest, but they had to worry about holding the banquet again. How could they be happy? Master Changqing suffered serious internal injuries because of the battle with Mahorika, and he hasn't recovered yet. In my opinion, there is no need to hold this banquet. Gu Yuxuan smiled ingratiatingly and wanted to fight for it again. Guan Wen's eyes turned, and he immediately followed Gu Yuxuan's words and said, "Master, what the eldest brother said is right. I will go after Shen Xiangyan and tell her that there is no need to notify the senior doctor and others." But just as Guan Wen raised his foot, he saw Wuxiazi's face sank. "Stop." Wuxiazi gave an order, and Guan Wen's body suddenly froze in place. He did not dare to disobey Wuxiazi's order, and ran out directly. After calling Guan Wen, Wuxiazi looked at Xia Changqing with suspicion, wondering in his heart whether Xia Changqing and Gu Yuxuan had colluded and did not want him to hold the banquet. "Changqing, are you really seriously injured internally? Tell me the truth. If you are really injured internally, I will heal you personally." Wuxiazi frowned and looked at Xia Changqing seriously. Xia Changqing bowed to Wuxiazi and said loudly, "Master, I did suffer internal injuries in the battle with Mahorika." Before Xia Changqing finished speaking, Wuxiazi flashed to his side. Before Xia Changqing could see clearly, Wuxiazi had already grabbed his wrist. With just a slight sense, Wuxiazi already knew Xia Changqing's condition. Yes, Changqing did suffer internal injuries. After hearing Wuxiazi's confirmation, Gu Yuxuan's eyes lit up, and he immediately said, "Master, Changqing is indeed injured, so let's forget about this banquet." Unexpectedly, Wuxiazi glared and said dissatisfiedly, "Changqing is injured. Are you also injured? What does this mean?" Gu Yuxuan and the other two looked at each other. Dan Fang Weiming was the more honest one. He whispered, "We are not injured." "Humph." Wuxiazi snorted in dissatisfaction. "Since you three are not injured, why are you still here? Hurry up and prepare for the evening banquet." Xia Changqing was stunned. What his master said made sense. He was injured internally, and Gu Yuxuan and the other two were fine. It seemed that they could not escape the work of preparing the banquet. However, it is better to die than to die. As long as he doesn't have to work, Xia Changqing has no reason to object to holding the banquet. Master is right. I was injured internally, and you guys are alive and kicking. You are fine. Hurry up and listen to Master's instructions, and prepare for the banquet. Xia Changqing did not hesitate to throw stones at me. Huh. The angry eyes of Gu Yuxuan and the other two seemed to want to kill Xia Changqing. This kind of person who takes advantage of others' misfortunes is really shameless. Chapter 272 Jealousy. Sit down. Wuxiazi pointed to the futon in front of him and motioned Xia Changqing to sit down. Gu Yuxuan and others had been sent away by Wuxiazi to prepare for the evening banquet. Xia Changqing was given special treatment because of his internal injuries. He did not have to worry about these things, but stayed to play a game with Wuxiazi. Wuxiazi held the white chess piece and made a light move on the chessboard. "Changqing, I can see that you have gained a lot from this youth hero conference." Wuxiazi stroked his white beard with one hand, staring at Xia Changqing, and a satisfied smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Xia Changqing also made a move and smiled. "Master has a keen eye. I knew I couldn't hide it from you. The world is too big, and there are many talented people. If I hadn't realized a little bit of the true meaning of Xiaoyao, I might have missed the championship of the Youth Hero Conference." "Oh, not bad, not bad." Wuxiazi said two not bad words in a row, and he looked at Xia Changqing with more satisfaction. "You did very well. I originally thought that among you brothers, Yuxuan would be the first one who could comprehend the true meaning of Xiaoyao from the Xiaoyao boxing, but I didn't expect that you would get there first. The martial arts of my Xia Valley, whether it is the Xia palm, Xia body, or Xia sword, can all be used to comprehend the true meaning of Xia. When he said this, a trace of regret flashed in Wuxia's eyes. In my generation, there are only two of us, my brother. It's a pity that your uncle is too utilitarian. He has practiced for so many years in vain, but he still can't understand the true meaning of Xia. So he changed to practice poison skills and rebelled against Xia Valley, hoping to realize his ambitions with the Xianlang sect. But how could he know that if he was not so utilitarian and could understand the true meaning of Xia? He would have a place among the masters of this world. Wuxia looked at Xia Changqing with full of expectations. Changqing, I hope you can keep your original intention. Xia is not easy to comprehend, and it is also easy to leave you. Xia Changqing sincerely bowed to Wuxia. Thank you for your teachings, master. As he dropped a black dot, Xia Changqing felt complicated in his heart. The meaning of Wuxia's encouragement was very clear. Xia Changqing knew that Wuxia regarded him as the next head of Xia Valley. It's just a pity that he is not interested in this and is destined to disappoint Wuxia. The banquet was held as usual. Although Gu Yuxuan and the other two were extremely dissatisfied, since Wuxia had already given the order, they would naturally not go against his will. At Shen Xianggan's notice, all the 7 sages of Wangai arrived. At the banquet, Wuxia was very happy and asked Xia Changqing to sit next to him. He did not hide his appreciation for Xia Changqing, except for the simple-minded Dan Fang Weiming and Shen Xianggan. Everyone present could see that Wuxia was introducing a successor. Among the disciples of Xia Valley, Gu Yuxuan, as the eldest brother, was very pleased. He was a broad-minded gentleman. He was happy from the bottom of his heart that Xia Changqing, who was better at martial arts than him, would become the next head of Xia Valley. Gu Yuxuan did not have any jealous thoughts. As for Guan Wei, he was the first person to know Xia Changqing among the people present. Xia Changqing had already joined Changhang escort agency long before the two of them worshipped Wuxia as their master. The friendship between the two is naturally deeper than that of others. Although Guan Wei usually looks like he is not convinced by Xia Changqing, if Xia Changqing can become the next head of Xia Valley, he will definitely be the first person to support him. As for Dan Fang Weiming, he has the simplest mind and did not even see the deep meaning of Wuxia. How could he be dissatisfied with Xia Changqing becoming the next head? For Dan Fang Weiming, as long as he can eat enough and practice martial arts every day, it is the happiest thing. However, among the people present, there is one person who is dissatisfied with this. That is Wuxia's second disciple, Jingji. When Wuxia expressed his intention to take Xia Changqing as the successor, Jingji's face sank, but he usually has a cold face, so his gloomy face is also normal, no different from usual. But the dissatisfaction and jealousy flashing in his eyes show what he thinks in his heart. In Jingji's heart, he looks down on Gu Yuxuan, the eldest brother, not to mention Xia Changqing, Guan Wei and Dan Fang Weiming, the 3 people who changed their ways. The old man is really confused. Jingji couldn't help thinking so. But he could also tell that such an occasion was not suitable to oppose Wu Xia's decision in person, as it would only make outsiders laugh at Xia Valley. At the banquet, the 7 sages of Wangai praised Xia Changqing one by one. Even the strange doctor, who was always gloomy, did not hesitate to praise Xia Changqing. And Shen Xianggan's eyes were on Xia Changqing throughout the whole process. The focus of the whole banquet was only Xia Changqing. The discovery of this phenomenon made Jingji even more jealous. He was just dissatisfied. How long has Xia Changqing just joined Xia Valley? Didn't he just win the championship of the Youth Hero Conference? Why did everyone's eyes focus on him? According to Jingji's thoughts, it was just a Youth Hero Conference. He didn't win the championship that time because he was careless. If he were allowed to participate in the Youth Hero Conference again, he could definitely easily grab the championship. Jingji hid this jealousy deeply in his heart. No matter how wonderful a banquet is, it will eventually end, and people will leave. In the beautiful performance of the fairy music, the moon rose and the people dispersed, leaving only a mess. At such a happy moment, naturally no one wanted to stay to clean up the scene before going back. Wu Xiaozi would not force his disciples to do so. Even if Leo, who wanted to clean up and go back to rest, he was driven back to his room by Wu Xiaozi. Everyone left one after another, and Wu Xiaozi returned to his room. He walked to the table and poured himself a cup of tea. He had drunk a lot of wine just now. Even with his skills, he could not help but feel a little drunk. After slowly drinking a sip of tea, the smile on Wu Xiaozi's face slowly disappeared. He was silent for a moment and finally said, "Come in if you have something to do, and go to rest if you don't have anything to do. What are you doing standing at the door of my room?" Turning his eyes to the door of Wu Xiaozi's room, Jingxi appeared at his door without knowing when. Jingxi was not surprised that Wu Xiaozi had revealed his whereabouts. He walked forward and slowly pushed open Wu Xiaozi's door. Chapter 273 Thorns. Late at night, Xiaoyao Valley. Jingxi pushed open Wu Xiaozi's door, and he finally walked into his master's room. If he couldn't ask clearly, he would be upset, let alone sleep tonight. Wu Xiaozi didn't seem to be surprised by Jingxi's arrival, and he slowly put the teacup in his hand on the table. "What are you doing standing there? What's the matter? Tell me quickly, the master still needs to rest." Wu Xiaozi shouted with some dissatisfaction. Hearing this, Jingxi frowned, and he stared at Wu Xiaozi. After a short silence, he finally asked, "Why? Why?" Wu Xiaozi pretended to be puzzled and asked. His eyes were deep, as if he saw through everything, and looked at his apprentice. "Why did you say that at the banquet, old man? What is so strong about Xia Changqing? You have already decided to make him the next head." Jingxi finally said dissatisfiedly, and his voice was unconsciously a little louder. "Why? Because I think he is the right person." Wu Xiaozi said angrily. His beard was about to stand up, but there was a trace of grief in his eyes. "This is my decision. Changqing is the most suitable candidate for the next head of Xiaoyao Valley. This is my decision. If you have nothing else to do, go back and rest. It's okay if you don't sleep. I'm old and don't have the energy to stay up late. I don't accept it." Jingxi stood straight at the door, hiding his face in the darkness, and his fists were clenched involuntarily. He knew what Wu Xiaozi meant. Xia Changqing's ability was stronger than his. Although he knew that this was what Wu Xiaozi meant, Jingxi just didn't accept it. He didn't accept why he was not as good as Xia Changqing. Alas. Wu Xiaozi sighed slowly. He looked at Jingxi with a headache. His apprentice grew up beside him since he was a child. How could he not know what kind of person Jingxi was? Speaking of the feelings towards his disciples, Gu Yuxuan and Jingxi are naturally more important in Wu Xiaozi's heart. However, it is precisely because Wu Xiaozi knows what kind of person Jingxi is, so how could he not know Jingxi's ambition like Zhu and Mingzi? This made Wu Xiaozi think of what happened decades ago. At that time, when he and Zhu and Mingzi's master decided that his senior brother would succeed him as the next head of Xiaoyao Valley, Zhu and Mingzi was also full of dissatisfaction. Like Jingxi now, Zhu and Mingzi thought that Wu Xiaozi only knew how to fiddle with flowers and plants all day long, and his interest in piano, chess, calligraphy and painting was higher than martial arts. Their Xiaoyao Valley is a martial arts sect. If it is handed over to Wu Xiaozi, how can Xiaoyao Valley develop? It's a pity that Zhu and Mingzi can't understand what the true meaning of Xiaoyao is. Since the beginning of the founding of Xiaoyao Valley, the ancestor has never thought about developing Xiaoyao Valley. People with such heavy minds can hardly comprehend the true realm of Xiaoyao Valley's martial arts. Although Zhu and Mingzi also understood these things, his ideas did not change because of them, so he was dissatisfied with Wu Xiaozi becoming the head of the sect, so he rebelled against Xiaoyao Valley. And now, Wu Xiaozi also saw the shadow of Zhu and Mingzi in Jingxi. Jingxi, do you think that the martial arts that your master taught you are not as powerful as what you learned from your uncle? Wu Xiaozi sighed and slowly revealed the secret hidden in Jingxi's heart. This made Jingxi startled in vain, and a trace of panic flashed in his eyes. The fact that he followed his uncle Zhu and Mingzi to learn martial arts should be very secret. How did the master know about it? Jingxi opened his mouth. He wanted to say something to refute, but he couldn't open his mouth. He knew very well in his heart that, since Wu Xiaozi had revealed this matter, it meant that he had grasped the facts. There was no point in him quibbling. A feeling of resentment suddenly rose in Jingji's heart, and he said in a cold voice, "Yes, the martial arts that my uncle taught me are better than the martial arts of Xiaoyao Valley. Just like the Xiaoyao swordsmanship you taught me." Xiaoyao? Xiaoyao. Jingji even said the word Xiaoyao. What's the use of Xiaoyao alone? I don't want Xiaoyao. I want martial arts that can defeat my opponent. Hearing his apprentice's resentful words, Wuxia's eyes flashed a trace of sadness. "Jingji, has your master ever told you that if you can comprehend the true meaning of Xiaoyao from the Xiaoyao swordsmanship, your martial arts can leap to the forefront of the entire martial arts world?" "Xiaoyao?" Jingji suddenly sneered. "What is the true meaning of Xiaoyao? I have practiced the Xiaoyao swordsmanship for such a long time, but I have never felt the true meaning of Xiaoyao. My uncle told me that there is no true meaning of Xiaoyao in the Xiaoyao technique." Wuxia was stunned for a moment. At this moment, he was really angry with Zhuan Mingzi. Even when Zhuan Mingzi betrayed Xiaoyao Valley and wanted to lure Gu Yuxun and others into Xian Lang sect, he was not so angry. "So that's what Zhuan Mingzi told you. Jingji, you were deceived by him. Your uncle master will never be able to understand the true meaning of Xiaoyao in his life. He lost this hope, but he also led you astray. This is all the fault of the master." Wuxia said with some regret. He knew that Zhuan Mingzi had seduced his disciples. However, everyone else could understand that Zhuan Mingzi had bad intentions, but Jingji, a smart man, agreed with Zhuan Mingzi's words. Wuxia, who had always held a laissez-faire attitude towards this matter, really regretted it in his heart. "Jingji, everything the master said is true. You can go to Changqing to verify this matter. The master did not lie to you." Wuxia persuaded patiently. He hoped that with the example of Xia Changqing, Jingji would turn back. "Xiaoyao is real. As long as you can let go of the anger in your heart, I believe you can also comprehend it." What Wuxia didn't expect was that it would be fine if he didn't mention Xia Changqing. Now that Xia Changqing's name was mentioned, the anger in Jing's heart rose. "Xia Changqing. Xia Changqing. Xia Changqing again. Damn old man, there is only Xia Changqing in his heart." He tried hard to stop the anger in his heart. He stared at Wuxia and asked word by word, "Old man, do you mean that Xia Changqing has comprehended Xiaoyao?" "Yes." When Wuxia uttered these two words, Jing's mind was blank. He didn't even hear what Wuxia said next. "Okay, I know." Jing said lightly, turned around and left without saying a word. Chapter 274 Night Visit. What an injustice. What an injustice. Looking at Jingji's back as he left, Wu Zizi sighed twice. The old man secretly calculated in his heart that if Zhuan Mingzi dared to come to Xiaoyao Valley to seduce his disciples again, he would definitely keep him. Didn't Zhuan Mingzi say that Xiaoyao was a scam? Then, as a senior brother, he had the obligation to help his dear junior brother and see what the real Xiaoyao was like. Turning around, Wu Zizi looked at Jingji's back and couldn't help but feel a little headache again. He had to pay more attention to this disciple. Gu Yuxun and the others were all kind-hearted, and he didn't need to worry about them. Only Jingji, the disciple, had too much resentment in his heart. It would not be a good thing if it continued for a long time. Shaking his head, Wu Zizi turned around and went to bed. But he didn't know that, after Jingji left, he turned around and came to the outside of Xia Changqing's room. Bang, bang. Xia Changqing was about to blow out the oil lamp and go to bed when he suddenly heard a knock on the door. He felt strange. Who would disturb him so late at night? Who is it? Why are you knocking on the door? Everyone was very familiar with each other. There were only these few people in Xiaoyao Valley. If the person who came was not Gu Yuxun, it must be Guan Wei or Dongfang Weiming, so Xia Changqing's tone was not polite at all. But what he never expected was that when Xia Changqing opened the door, the person who came was not one of the three people he expected, but Jingji, who had never had much contact with him. "Jingji." Xia Changqing stretched out his hand and yawned, and asked in confusion, "What do you want?" Jingji didn't care about Xia Changqing's action of calling him by name directly. He was not only concerned about the name. Xia Changqing, come out, let's fight, Jingji said with a sullen face. Xia Changqing looked up and down at Jingji, not understanding why he was so crazy that he didn't sleep at night and actually came to fight with him. You are crazy, Jingji, don't you know that disturbing others' rest at night is a very immoral thing? No matter how well mannered he was, when he was extremely sleepy, he was disturbed by others. Xia Changqing was a little angry in his heart, and he spoke with a few thorns. Swish. Jingji drew out his knife. He used 2 knives, and the tips of the knives pointed at Xia Changqing. Jingji's voice was extremely cold. Stop talking nonsense, you must fight me tonight. A wave of anger rose from Xia Changqing's heart. Jingji's behavior was really unreasonable and crazy. Are you sick? Why should I fight you in the middle of the night? Even if you want to learn martial arts, why don't you wait until tomorrow? No. Thorns interrupted Xia Changqing. Tonight. Xia Changqing frowned, and suddenly he was not so angry anymore. He leaned against the door frame, completely ignoring the long knife in Thorn's hand. He looked him up and down again, and said in amazement, are you dissatisfied with me because I won the championship of the Youth Hero Conference? I know you are jealous. This is not okay. Jealousy is a disease. Now that you have discovered it, you must treat it as soon as possible. Thorns exuded hostility towards him from head to toe. Xia Changqing naturally had no need to be warm and cold to him. He didn't mock him verbally. His intentions were not clear. Looking for death. Thorns suddenly shouted coldly, raised his knife, and chopped towards Xia Changqing. The knife was fierce and full of murderous intent. Xia Changqing's eyes condensed. Thorns had no intention of holding back with this knife. This was coming to take his life. Xia Changqing suddenly slapped the side of the blade of Jingxi, knocking the blade off its original trajectory. But Jingxi's next blade had already reached him. Xia Changqing's heart was filled with murderous intent, and he retreated lightly. Jingxi took advantage of the situation and exerted his blade power. The 2 blades rotated endlessly, and one blade after another covered Xia Changqing. Now the furnishings in Xia Changqing's room were in trouble, and they were smashed to pieces under Jingxi's blade, and the whole room was in a mess. Choke. The King Ying's sword was unsheathed, and Xia Changqing held the sword in his hand. The whole person's momentum changed dramatically. He moved his sword towards Jingxi, as if it was invisible. A trace of horror flashed in Jingxi's eyes. In his eyes, Xia Changqing's sword moved left and right, up and down, and it was difficult to find a trace. With great fear in his heart, Jingxi could only rotate his 2 blades, and the water waving in front of him could not penetrate. But Xia Changqing's sword was able to cut the water. This sword passed through the wind barrier of Jingxi in a magical way, and was withdrawn at his chest. Jingxi felt a pain in his chest and the knife in his hand stopped involuntarily. He looked down, and saw that his clothes had been pierced at the position of his heart, and bright red blood was slowly oozing out. Xia Changqing's sword was withdrawn at the touch, leaving Jingxi with only some skin injuries, but not hurting him. After all, Jingxi was Wuxia's second disciple. For Wuxia's sake, he could be unkind, but he could not be unjust. Jingxi, I have given you enough face. I don't know what you are crazy about, but if you think I'm easy to bully, then I can only tell you that you have found the wrong person. Xia Changqing stood tall, with the tip of the sword pointing diagonally to the ground, and a drop of blood slowly dripped onto the ground. Jingxi's body was trembling slightly, and he lowered his head slightly. Of course, he was not frightened by Xia Changqing's sword, but his anger was about to break through his reason. Why? Jingji asked himself. He had been learning from Wu Zizi for such a long time, and Xia Changqing had only been Wu Zizi's disciple for a little over a year, but now he could not resist his free and easy swordsmanship. Jealousy was like a poisonous insect, gnawing at his soul. Jingji refused to accept it. Unconsciously, a green aura appeared on Jingji's face, and he lowered his head slightly, and suddenly laughed. Ha ha ha. It's all a scam. What a bullshit free and easy tour. It's ridiculous. Jingji suddenly raised his head, his eyes were bloodshot and turned red, like a devil from hell, ready to bite anyone. Even Xia Changqing was a little scared by Jingji's sudden change. Could this be a demonic possession? Xia Changqing smacked his lips, thinking with some gloating. He was a very ordinary person, and Xia Changqing had long been fed up with Jinx's annoying personality, so when he saw Jinx's obsessive changes, Xia Changqing did not have any false concern. On the contrary, a gloating smile appeared on his face. Chapter 275 Obsessed. You are still laughing. Jinxie stared at Xia Changqing. After seeing the smile on Xia Changqing's mouth, he felt as if he was mocked, and felt extremely humiliated. This made Jinxie quickly forget the grace of Xia Changqing's sword just now, and he swung his sword towards him. Xia Changqing immediately dodged sideways after the sword slashed, but what he didn't expect was that Jinx's sword actually stimulated a weak energy. The sword-shaped energy passed Xia Changqing and slashed on the wall of the room behind him, leaving a crack on it. Xia Changqing looked at Jinxie in surprise. He didn't expect that he could master the method of releasing the true energy. People in the martial arts world distinguish the level of a person's realm by looking at the degree of control over the true energy. Being able to circulate the internal force throughout the body and protect the body with true energy can be called a master. And releasing the true energy is another level. Xia Changqing always thought that Jinx's realm was one level lower, but he didn't expect that he would give him a surprise tonight. Swish. Jinxie slashed again. Although the blade did not touch Xia Changqing's body, it stimulated another sword energy. Xia Changqing's eyes lit up, and he raised his sword to meet it. He swung his sword and immediately stimulated a sword energy. However, unlike the dull sword energy stimulated by Jinxie, Xia Changqing's sword energy was more condensed and faster. Puff, the two energies collided, and after a low muffled sound, Jinx's sword energy quickly disappeared, while the sword energy, after a little illusion, continued to move forward and rushed straight to Jinxie. HMPH. Jinxie groaned in pain. Although he tried his best to dodge, unfortunately, the sword energy still left a wound on his arm. The pain further stimulated the ferocity in Jinx's heart. He didn't care and rushed in front of Xia Changqing like a madman. His sword technique was insidious and vicious, and it didn't have the unrestrained meaning of the free and easy sword technique. Every move was aimed at Xia Changqing's vital points. Ding ding ding. The crisp sound continued to ring. Xia Changqing easily blocked the attack of thorns, and the battlefield between the two had moved out of Xia Changqing's room, which was already a mess. Xia Changqing did not take down thorns immediately. Naturally, there were some small thoughts in his mind. When Wuxiazi was still there, thorns could kill him without any care, and Xia Changqing's martial arts were much higher than thorns. When thorns could not hurt him, he could not seriously injure or kill thorns. Wuxiazi was old and cunning, and he could definitely see it. But Xia Changqing was dragging thorns and making such a big noise. Wuxiazi and others would definitely find out. Xia Changqing was completely innocent in this matter, and all the causes and consequences were on thorns. As long as he passed Wuxiazi's level, it would be easy for Xia Changqing to control thorns. Under the silent night sky, the sound of Xia Changqing fighting with thorns could be heard far away, and Xia Changqing shouted loudly from time to time. Wuxiazi and the others, who were not fully asleep yet, immediately noticed the noise outside. Wuxiazi was only wearing an outer coat. As soon as he stepped out of the door, he saw Xia Changqing and Jingji fighting fiercely on the roof in the distance. After just a little thought, Wuxiazi understood what had happened. Evil disciple. Wuxiazi was so angry that his beard was about to stand up. He knew that it was because of his words that Jingji left his room and went to find Xia Changqing. Not only Wuxiazi heard the noise, but Gu Yuxuan and the other two also heard the noise and came out of their rooms. Why are senior brothers Changqing and Jingji fighting? Dong Fangwei yawned, rubbed his eyes, and looked at the roof in confusion. Why are you fighting in the middle of the night? It really disturbs people's sleep. Guan Wei said dissatisfiedly. These two people didn't want to realize the seriousness of the matter. On the rooftop, Xia Changqing, while fighting with Jingxi, listened to all directions and looked around. He also found that Wuxiazi, whom he was waiting for, finally came out of the house and discovered the situation here. Master, Jingxi has gone crazy. You come to save me quickly. He wants to kill me. Xia Changqing exhaled and spoke with full energy, without any unstable breath during the battle. Wuxiazi's eyes twitched. From the sound, he could tell that Xia Changqing was just giving in to Jingxi. But in this matter, Jingxi was indeed wrong. Zuana, go and separate the two of them. Wuxiazi ordered unhappily. Yes, master. Gu Yuxian agreed from a distance, stepped on the ground, and his body floated to the rooftop. Changqing, Jingji, both of you stop it. Stop fighting. Why are you so crazy in the middle of the night? Didn't you see that even the master was alarmed? Gu Yuxian did not take action immediately, but patiently persuaded him. He did not take Xia Changqing's words to heart at all. This is not a breakthrough. How could Jingji go crazy so easily? But Jingji did not listen to Gu Yuxian's words at all. His mind was full of thoughts on how to defeat Xia Changqing. Gu Yuxian, are you stupid? Didn't you hear me say that Jingji has gone crazy? Come and help me control him. Xia Changqing shouted angrily, secretly cursing Gu Yuxian for not having good eyesight. Didn't he see that Jingji was always attacking, and he was always defending? After hearing Xia Changqing's words, Gu Yuxian's expression was stunned. He glanced at Jingji, who was silent, and asked again, "Junior brother, stop it quickly." Gu Yuxian felt as if he was ignored. "Junior brother, I'm sorry." Even a clay man can still get angry. Although Gu Yuxian has always been a gentle person, it doesn't mean that he has no temper. As soon as the reminder fell, Gu Yuxian rushed to the middle of Xia Changqing and Jingji in 3 steps and raised his fist to hit Jingji. Jingji's eyes were scarlet. He looked at Gu Yuxian, who suddenly inserted himself in. I don't know what sounded in his mind again, and he immediately changed his target to Gu Yuxian. "Junior brother, calm down. Jingji, you will make me angry." Gu Yuxian resisted and persuaded him earnestly. Xia Changqing, who had his hands free, stood aside, folded his arms and said nothing, looking at Gu Yuxian, who was restrained with his hands and feet. "I told you, Jingji has gone crazy. No matter how much you persuade him, he will never listen." Xia Changqing sneered and said loudly, "Since you know it, why don't you come and help me?" Gu Yuxian shouted angrily. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.